darling. Hi, friends. Oh, I forgot the microphone. It's over there. You can barely hear me. I sound like I'm in the Grand Canyon, so far away. All right. Let's bring the microphone over here to enable your ears to receive ever clearer and more beautiful sounds. So, you'll notice that this live stream is called Let's Be Creative. Why? Well, it's not for a particularly creative reason. It's because I already had this thumbnail for the earlier video I made right before I started streaming called One Question Creativity Test. So rather than make an entirely new new topic, whatever, I just figured I'd repurpose this head here. I'd write on it stream to differentiate it between the other video with a similar thumb, and I already had a topic then, Well, that's not very creative of you, Eric. I don't normally do things that way, so it's at least divergent from my norm. To what extent creativity can be attained simply through diverging from a norm is unclear, but I will say I've taken a very creative decision-making process right off the bat. I positioned myself square on the tip of this guy's nose. Now, that's not normally where I put my head, right? Normally I'm down there in the corner where I belong. Get back in your corner, Eric. So, I am out of notifications. Boba Fett pointed that out, and I said, because I wasn't at the time thinking about, even though we had just been talking about live streaming, this NI ignoring as well, I was like, yeah, I don't really care about notifications anymore, which is true. I just stopped thinking about it. I stopped worrying about it. But what he was saying is, if you live stream, Eric, you're going to kind of need those notifications to let people know you're streaming, or else there's not going to be any reason to go check to see what's going on or whatnot, Well, that was frustrating. What was frustrating? What was frustrating? Tell me, did you go to Frustration Parks? The amusement park that is dedicated to exclusively frustrating experiences? All their rides are frustrating experiences. The frustration fields. Ja, nothing but salty. Ja, what was frustrating? Ja, nothing but salty. Do you monkey haunty? What was frustrating you? Oh, you had trouble coming up with one? You wanna know what the trick is? You start with a disease of some sort, and you just figure out something that rhymes with it. It's pretty straightforward, actually. I could probably come up with 10 of them right now. I just came up with 2. But it took me a long time to come up with the first one until I figured out what the strategy is. And then it's the same as like Inky Pinky. It's just you got to commit to one end of it first. You can't try to come up with it holistically. You're trying to NI it. You can't NI these things, you got to NI them. So it'll be like testicular cancer, okay? So in order to get it to sort of flip backwards, it would need to be cans of served cans served. I'd rather have cans served to rescue her than give you testicular cancer. It doesn't quite work, but you see how the idea is. You gotta wrestle with it a bit. Then you gotta wrestle with it. And you pick another disease like sleep apnea. Sleep apnea seems particularly ripe, doesn't it? Sleep apnea. So, okay, sleep apnea. I'd rather have napping I'd rather be I'd rather be glad to be peeping than have sleep apnea. That doesn't work at all. They're hard, right? Actually, they're quite difficult. They are difficult. You know, you got to really wrestle with it. I think my original thing that I thought that made this go was intestinal. Was it intestinal tumors? Okay, so I'd rather have 10 tests of good humor than suffer intestinal tumors. Ideally, you want it to metrically roll like that too. So there's a lot of factors you got to put into place to make it work, right? Hi, Eliana D. But what I like about it is, it feels to me like, ooh, I just recognized that within the unique kind of trick of that saying is basically a distinct form. Like, a guy walks into a bar with a distinct form. So you could always say, or a man, a duck, and a rabbi walk into a bar. The classic punchline is, only the duck is knocked out because naturally it merely tripped the two men walking beside it. What's the difference between a lobster with a boob job and a dirty bus station? I don't know. Only one of them offers transit to other cities? That's my creative answer. We're being creative tonight, Eliana. Feel free to create away. Go ahead. We're being free with our expressiveness. We're expressing our emotions, our feelings, and our thoughts. We're creating. We're all learning from the example that was set by one of the world's greatest geniuses, Raul Diego. You may know Raul Diego from his famous instructional series, Painting with Ideas. See, here's the thing. Here's the key message from Raul Diego. If you are an intuitive like me, you don't need to see the thing you're going to paint. Okay? That's for los sensores, los sensors. Oh, I got to look at something to know what I'm going to paint. Oh, look, there's a bowl of fruit. I am an intuitive, okay? I don't need to see a bowl of fruit to know what a bowl of fruit looks like. Okay? Los sensores, they don't have ideas. Yeah, all the geniuses of the world are intuitives like me. When I paint, I just say, Raul Diego, what idea are you going to paint today? Oh yeah, one's a crusty bus station, the other's a busty crustacean. That's great, Jonathan Masati, even if it isn't original. I've never heard that before. I like it a lot. Okay. So if anybody would like to come up with further bottle and frenemies, please offer them up. I understand it takes a lot of rumination to generate one. They're not easy to do. These are much more challenging than Inky Pinkies. So Just because you got to factor in a lot of different things, right? I'd rather have a torn meniscus. So torn meniscus seems like it's promising too. I'd rather I'd rather buff I'd rather buff corn off of fences than suffer from torn meniscus. Pretty good, okay? I'd rather buff corn off of fences than suffer a torn meniscus is a pretty good example, okay? It's not quite as... I mean, I don't think you can do better than I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. That's perfect. It's like it attained the ultimate iconic platonic form of the bottle thing. We need a name for it though. We could call it what's that lady's the lady's name who came up with that. Let me Google that. Then we'll just call it that lady's last name inversion. Okay, who wrote I'd rather have a bottle in front of me? Dorothy Parker. So we'll call that a Parker inversion, okay? I think Dorothy Parker herself, with I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy, manifests the single platonic form of the Parker inversion. But yeah, a Parker inversion refers to specifically making one of these things, okay? I'd rather be on the spectrum than have a spoon in my rectum. Absolutely fantastic, Jonathan Basanti. A++. I'd rather be on the spectrum than have a spoon in my rectum. Maybe I'd rather be on the spectrum than have pee spooned in my rectum. Would even be better to be right for a rhyme. Maybe have a little bit extra piece of rhyme, although it would make a little less sense. All right, so we're coming up with Parker inversions tonight. This is the creativity stream. All of your beautiful, expressive creativity is encouraged here. Listen, when we create in this class our paintings, there are no rules. You just express your feelings with these paints. All right, so I think in the lead right now is Jonathan Basanti's I'd rather be on the spectrum than spoon pee into my rectum. Than spoon peas into my rectum. We can alter it a little bit, but the concept, I think Jonathan Basanti's concept right there, I'd prefer to say I'd rather be on the spectrum than spoon peas into my rectum. Just because it rolls better, right? Even if it makes a little less sense. And the other thing is, you actually did an inverted Parker inversion. So you'd rather have the disease than the thing. That's called an inverted Parker inversion. Nice work there. You went expert level. If this were a diving competition at the Olympics, that would be one of those that has a high difficulty score. The inverted Parker inversion. Ooh, look at that. Triple ollie, triple all-time 360 over the air foot touch face push meow meow trick. I like how, skateboarding and snowboarding or whatever, they just string syllables together and go, oh yeah, that's a zazzle pazzle triple 182 with a double over top flip top side. Sounds like must be hard. The truth is, what you suspect is true. They're just making that shit up on the fly. The guys doing the tricks, they don't know what they're going to do. They just flop around in the air and they just happen to land on their feet, then great. And then they make up some name for it and people think they were trying to do that. It's all a bunch of accidents. Accidental, graceful falls at top level skateboarding. This is one of the really unknown but true and strange mysteries of our reality. Why is it the best skateboarders only can attain that level of competency by being terrible and constantly accidentally falling, but just happening to fall in graceful ways? I'd rather have a vase as my lectern than a vasectomy that makes my neck turn. It's a start, needs some work, okay? It needs some work. Vasectomy is a good thing to include as a thing, but I'd rather have Tommy put vests on me than let you perform a vasectomy. I'd rather let... Who? I'd rather let Tom put more vests on me than undergo that there vasectomy. I'd rather let Tom put those vests on me than undergo that there vasectomy. Works pretty well, okay? The key thing here is, if you think about lobotomy and bottle, it's you switch the syllables, right? So if the thing is vasectomy, then sect needs to come before vas in the first half. Regardless, you can still be here and enjoy the wonderful, wonderful delights that this stream has to offer, even if you don't want to play this game, okay? You are not required to come up with with Parker inversions or try to match Jonathan Basanti's inverted Parker inversion, which is kind of a challenge. If you do an upside down inverted Parker inversion, that would look like... let's see, what's an upside down inverted Parker inversion? They would be like... I would... I'd not rather have a burn Indian, which is the inversion of Indian burn, which makes it upside down. I'd rather not have a burn Indian than go and see Vern and Carol again. I'd rather not have a burn Indian than have to go visit with Vern again. Something like that would be An upside down inverted Parker inversion because, of course, the disorder is backwards into two-word term. There are a lot of precise rules for this. A lot of precise rules. I'd rather have massive achiews than crashing a moose. It's got too few syllables. I like what you're saying there. I think you're doing now. Look, Sorry 619 has presented with us an inverted Parker inversion, just as Jonathan Bassani did. So he would prefer the disease over the other thing. That's what makes it inverted. Okay, I'd rather have massive achiews than I'd rather have massive achiews than have to get assy with you. I'd rather have massive achiews than have to get assy with you. Would be one way of putting it. You need more syllables with your crashing your moose, I think. I'd rather have massive achiews than find myself crashing a moose. Or I'd rather have massive achiews than maximally crashing I'd rather have massive achiews than actually crashing a moose. It kind of needs an act to the other half. See, I don't exactly know what the rules are, but I can tell when things better fit into them than not. All I do know is that Dorothy Parker is a very interesting lady. If you read her story, she's really interesting. She came of age as an artist in the Roaring '20s, in her 20s, which of course is like pouring gasoline on fire. And in other words, her instincts artistically evolved a great deal from the point when she wrote those kind of quips. But that was her specialty, was quips, and she was genius at it. But the Depression era '30s had a lot less of a marketplace for quips, for clever, nihilistic, kind of less than zero style amoral quips. You know? Beauty's only skin deep, but ugly goes clean to the bone. It's a good quote. The first thing I do in the morning is brush my teeth and sharpen my tongue. She's very quotable, right? She's got plenty of snappy retorts. I'd rather have an upside down dick than Dawn's dick down my side. I'd rather an upside down dick than have to have Dawn's dick inside. I'd rather an upside down dick than having Dawn's dick up inside. You're definitely on something there. You know, each of these is subject to a little revision and trying to find its perfect form, which is one of the ways we know that Dorothy Parker's probably can never be beat. I'm pretty sure you can never beat I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. I don't think anybody can ever beat that one. I just think it's impossible to beat it. If you think I'm wrong, I'd like to hear that. But the best you could possibly do in theory is tie it. And I seriously doubt that's even possible. I'd rather ride a hot comet than slide on Scott's vomit. Again, there's too few syllables. There needs to be a syllable thing happening here. So it's like, I'd rather a ride on a comet than have to I'd rather be hit by a comet than sit down and shit, piss, and vomit. I'd rather sit down on a comet than sit down on shit, piss, and vomit. is not a Parker inversion, but it is a funny sentence. I'd rather sit down on a comet than bite down on shit, piss, and vomit. That's a pretty good one, I guess. I'd rather be kicked in a Hoboken barn than not touch my dick since I've broken my arm. I'd rather be kicked in a Hoboken barn than not touch my dick because of my broken arm. It's a pro-masturbation one. What other kind of disease? Like we have to think of good diseases first. Like gingivitis seems ripe for meow 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 meow. Gingivitis or cystic fibrosis also seems like it's gonna work. It's like it's got some meat there. I just kind of NI feel it's got some meat there. We can use cystic fibrosis. We can use encephalitis. I'd rather, like, I'd rather. It's hard to stream while doing this. When I do this during streams, I hate those streams. I won't watch them. I'm mad at myself because it's like, what's up with these big fucking pauses? You're boring the shit out of me, Eric. Keep talking. I want to hear you yammering nonstop banner. But when there's fun things like this, I tend to want to think, right? So it's like with encephalitis, you know, you want to start with fight, or flight, or bite, light, right? I'd rather a night's mess of violence than come down with encephalitis. Pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Okay, I'm going to stop doing those now so that I'm not thinking about that all the time. If you'd like to continue, I'll continue reading them as they arise. But I'm going to not do any more myself. I'm going to do something that I know we don't like to talk about a lot around here. It's kind of a bad word. I'm going to use a little something called Delph-discipline. Yes, that's right, Delph-discipline. Delph-discipline is a friend of mine who grew up in Calcutta, moved later to Athens, Greece, earned his elementary school degree in Siberia, graduated from middle school in Quebec, attended high school for the first 2 years in Argentina, third year in the Falkland Islands, and his final year in Ecuador, before eventually moving to where he now lives in Birmingham, Alabama. Yes, no, Delph-discipline. No, Delph-discipline. Delph-discipline is my life coach, and that's his story. He's traveled around a lot. Delph-discipline is not just my life coach, he's also what I like to call the thing I'm going to use now in order to not come up with more of those things that I think are fun. Namely, why do I call them those things? They have a name now. Parker inversions. I'm not going to come up with any more Parker inversions. Does that mean I won't necessarily come up with some Jesse Jacksonisms? No. Why would we think we can thrive when under the Reagan administration it seems only the rich survive? Why would we want to go dive when it seems only the Wall Street bankers have diving boards for which we can dive from? Are these rhetorical questions, Jesse Jackson, or do you want me to answer them? We are not a people hunted. We are instead a hunted people. That means the same thing, Jesse Jackson. We are not people without pride. We are the pride without a people. What? The question is moot. I like Jesse Jackson. He's funny. I wouldn't have voted for him. Although I liked him at the time. I remember thinking at the time, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I was rooting for him to win. Because, you know, I suffered the normal disease of childhood, liberalism. Only small children are liberals. But you gotta think it's adorable that they are. They want to tell us that they are providing housing for the poor. But when I look around, what do I see? The people poor in housing. Okay. If you want to see a just America, make America just. Okay. Is your speechwriter just flip words? If only the strong survive, then let's be sure to survive the strong. What does that even mean, Jesse Jackson? I don't understand. Is there somewhere on the internet has somebody collected a collection of awesome Jesse Jackson meow things that he does? My Duck Non-Canadian Leaf, we can certainly conclude that my imitation of Jesse Jackson confers no such duty onto me. Now look, as somebody who's recently discovered, and it's been a little scary, that I'm not just transracial, transageal, transgender, but I'm also transtimal, and I have recently spent some time back in pre-Civil War days and unfortunately, it was the first time in my life I'd ever crossed my fingers and said, please let me be whatever race. I mean, my race changes all the time. I don't ever have a preference. I don't care which race it is. But when I time slipped back into antebellum South, I said, oh, please, just anything but, you know what, right? Murphy's Law. I spent about a week and a half saying, well, yes, sir, Mr. Jackson, sir. I've been happy to do it. And it was fun for a while, shucking and a jiving. But I think I'm better at the jiving part than the shucking part. It kept telling me I needed to do certain tasks that I didn't really feel like doing. And I was surprised to discover this, but Um, they not only threatened me with violence, but they actually followed through with it. I kept trying to pin them down onto exactly what their justification was. And they said, because you ain't brung me my meow. And I said, do you mean you haven't brought me my meow? And they hit me some more. I'm like, look, I have no obligation to bring you your meow. Who the fuck are you anyway, you know? Said, you're not talking like we taught you. And I said, well, yes, sir, Mr. Blah. He said, I know, but I still ain't gonna bring you your thing. And then he understood me a little bit better. Apparently, people in the South, prior to the Civil War, weren't able to understand dark-skinned people unless they spoke strangely. So, I guess the dark-skinned people were being accommodating and had to learn this additional way of speaking in order to get through to the slow-witted cousin fucking Southerners. I'm just kidding, South. I love you. You were just protecting your way of life, alright? It was a war of northern aggression. We get it. Listen, if you've come down with the meows, let me tell you what you need to do. If you've come down with the meows, go ahead and put on your shoe. Look at the left one, look at the right. Look to see outside day or night. If it's night, late enough, go to bed and say, enough. I'm gonna sleep all night long, and when I wake up, the meows are gone. If, however, it's earlier in the day and you're feeling the meows, I mean, my first thought when I'm feeling the meows early in the day is, what drug do I want? My second thought is, oh, I just need to be in. I probably just need to go. I probably just need to chill out. Or I need to clean. I feel better if I clean or something. And then my third thought is, I'm probably just hungry or thirsty or something. And my fourth thought is, oh, maybe it's because it's like the second day of sleepy week. What's your fifth thought, Eric? Ooh, that's a secret. That one is a How did you know my secret, my duck? Non-Canadian leaf? It was supposed to be our little secret. Yeah, Rachel, if you're feeling meow, that's why they call it masturbating. It's because it gets rid of your meows. You've got a finger in her clitoris. I'm sure you can figure it out. I'm busy right now. I'm outside live streaming. You know, it's not rocket science, apparently. It's not a field of study I've looked into a great deal, but it's not rocket science, okay? I'd rather put my thumb in my mouth than put my mouth in my thumb. That is terrible. Yo. That is the worst one of all. And you get, you are winning the consolation prize game. When I was a kid, I read this short story in elementary school about this kid who had a strategy that he would always be the worst at all the games at the birthday parties because he knew that the mothers felt bad and they gave some of the nicest prizes were consolation prizes to the kids who did the worst. So it was his racket, right? And then he goes to this one birthday party and there's another kid who's got the same racket going on. I don't remember what happened, but I remember that much of the story. Wait, but Mrs. Baum, I'm host Eric Fa 444G. Fa 4G. I'm host Eric Fa 4G. Fa 4G. Oh yeah. Maybe that explains why I shop at Fajot Buffet, the new boutique in the mall that some people say has an offensive name. CEO Pierre Bourgeois disagrees. People do understand. This is our family name. We are the Pajons. We are from France. Yeah, Buffet is my business partner. He's my wife. Fajol Buffet. We interviewed this local man walking away from the store. Sir, did you just come out of Fajol Buffet? Well, I peeked in there. What were your thoughts? I was disappointed. I was expecting something totally different. Oh, what were you expecting? Well, you know, I didn't read it as buffet. I read it as buffet. So, you know. So what? Nothing. Goodbye. Well, this boutique is a wonderful addition to the mall. It's not quite clear what the customers think. I'm looking for a young lady coming out because it is a handbag and shoe store. Okay, well, here's another young gentleman looking. Hi, how was your experience with Peugeot Buffet? I was expecting something else. So, you weren't able to find what you're looking for? No. But, that was my bad. I should have known. No way. That's ridiculous. It can't possibly mean what it says. I should have known that. It's just, I've always dreamed, and so I hoped for a second that it was what it appeared to be. Because since I turned about 14, I've had this dream. And in this dream, there's a sign over the scene that's exactly the same as the sign of the store. In other words, I've always dreamed of being able to participate wholeheartedly, just hump my way through a fully laid out faggot buffet. And so, when I saw this store here for Joe Buffet, I thought, I'm in heaven, I'm in heaven, Needless to say, I was disappointed to discover it sells handbags and shoes. I mean, I get it, different countries spell things different ways. I mean, I eat at Young Dong restaurant, I get it. But come on. You're really creating a lot of disappointment among mall goers if you're gonna name your store Faggot Buffet. But that's creativity. Yo, I'd rather get top for $50 than have to pay $100. Well, as long as you pay me before, now I'm gonna have to switch it to like, I don't know, probably get in trouble or something. But it's hilarious. Anywho, yeah, you just gotta pay me before the 25th, and it's, yeah. Are you the one? I asked Dorothea to police those. She's not doing her job. So, one of my businesses, you may know, is Just Balls, which is a strip club that only reveals the balls of the men who were stripping. All the rest of them is covered, head to toe, burqa-esque. All you can just see, they just got the tests. They got 2 tests for you. Test 1 and test 2. You got to pass them both if you want to get to college. Anyhow, apparently people don't like the fact that there are no drinks served there, there are no chairs served there, there's no talking aloud, and that you have to stare intently the entire time from a distance of exactly 6 feet, or will be kicked out by the burly bouncer whose, incidentally, balls are not on display. So there's nothing fun about it for you, okay? It's basically, Just Balls is a concept business that says, what if male stripping were like snooty art gallery? just balls. And a new revolution in balls revealing was born. Before long, sports stars like Cristiano Ronaldo were seen showing their balls and nothing else. Later, women began covering head to toe in burqas and placing fake balls where they would be so that they wouldn't miss out on the trend. Are we forgetting the classic store name? I've got so many stores. I've got so many. Oh, that's not one of my stores. Badcock Furniture? I don't know about Badcock Furniture. I've got Food Cube. I've got Food Cube Caliente. I've got all licenses all the time. I've got Just Balls. I've got Just Bells. I've got Ramps, Lamps, and Amps. I've got More Than Just Condiments. And oh yeah, You and What Army? You and What Army is the business that if you hire You and What Army, they will come as a group of people with who are actually people with social media profiles, and in very sounding like very reasonable and thoughtful and articulate people, agree with you and defend your position, no matter how stupid it is, on whatever social media platform you want. You and What Army? It's a pretty good business idea. You just have to get a lot of really amoral NTPs to be the army, but so it's like, uh-oh, you've said something akin to women should stay in the kitchen. You and What Army will come there and spin that and with a bunch of different comments and stuff such that whoever it was that was critiquing you is now guilty of genocide. It's an amazing, amazing capacity to shape people's realities. One of my favorite questions in a typing session is to abruptly throw out there, okay, imagine this. So, you've just accidentally committed genocide. Now what? It really tells you a lot about their cognitive functions. Yeah, it does. A ho cho 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 cho. And a ree chee choo 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 choo. I'd like to also open a ancient Greek philosopher's rental business where you can rent an ancient Greek philosopher for your party or event, and either you can get a dramatist like Sophocles. Obviously Socrates is really popular, Plato's popular, Aristotle's popular, but you can get some of the more obscure Greeks as well. Sophocles. You could get who's the guy that wrote Homer? You can get Homer. You could get Agamemnon, if you want, to come to your party and discuss his role in the Tunic Wars or whatever he fought in. I don't know about the wars he fought in. I think this is a great idea. I'm not sure what the name of the business is. See, normally I have a name for a business before I have an idea. But this ancient Greek philosopher rental business, I really think it could bring a lot of real benefits in a lot of corporate environments. Corporations have weird things they do. They make their employees do for God knows what reason. I could be one of those weird things. I can be weird. In fact, it's hard for me not to be. I can provide something weird for your corporation. I can overcharge you. I know it won't count if you don't pay a lot of money for it. So you can pay me whatever. You can pay me a lot. Corporations have this rule. It only counts if it costs too much. When it comes to shit like that. I need consulting. Okay, we do need consulting. Why don't we just ask Eric? He's not really a very good employee, but he sure is smart. Oh, no. We gotta spend at least a couple $100,000 on this. It's like if corporations were smart, they could say, okay, I tell you what, Eric, you consult for us, and then you can, without telling any real details about anything that we want to keep private, then you can brag about having consulted for us on your YouTube channel. Really? Okay. And then somebody goes, of course, everybody says, that consulting can't possibly be worth anything. If a person were really worth to providing consultation, then they'd be smart enough to charge an appropriate amount for their valuable service. Not necessarily. Not remotely necessarily, okay? So, the thing is, like, ENTJs are smart. They know how to exploit people like that. And to a certain extent, INFJs do too. Like, Lightbulb knows how to take advantage of her connection with me to get insight about specific things that she thinks I can provide useful insight on. A lot of people don't really want advice at all. In other words, we all seem to go through life with the basic assumption that we know what we're doing better than other people know what we're doing, which is true by and large. But when you get into complex problems that involve more than just you, it can be very useful to get another pair of eyes on the thing and talk it out. Even if it's not me or something, just even if whoever, get another pair of eyes on it, talk it out. From my perspective, that can be extraordinarily useful in unclogging a problem, is to get a new set of eyes on it. And, of course, it's also the case that the set of eyes you get on it can be either maximally returning or minimally so, even if it's always more or less positive. I'm a good set of eyes to get on something, CEO just fired 900 people on a video call? ENTJ? I mean, I probably would have done that too. I don't think you got to be an ENTJ to fire 900 people on a video call. I got to fire 900 people? Well, there's no fucking way in hell I'm having 900 conversations. So, I'm going to just record a video explaining, look, this sucks. It's not really your fault you're being fired. You were less useful than the other people that we retained in some sense, perhaps, or less cost effective. But that doesn't invalidate the value of your work in general. You were worth what we were paying you. We just can't afford to pay you to have that expense anymore because we're trying to restructure economically or whatever. So y'all's got to go, but no hard feelings. You can expect good recommendations and shit, and life sucks, then you die. Have a good one. May email it off to them all, What else is there to say? It's not emotional matter. It's just whatever. It's just whatever has to be. Companies don't help anybody, none of their employees, customers, or anything, when they don't make money. If they lose money, lose value, lose the capacity to have capital to do investments and be responsive in the marketplace, then they don't help anybody. People think, hey, look, what are you doing? Why are you taking that huge fungus off the side of the tree? Because it's sapping away a lot of the nutrients and shit and will eventually kill the tree. Hey, but it's gotten used to growing there. Well, that's why we're going bankrupt. So we need to remedy that. I mean, these things are very straightforward matters. I don't understand why people get all fussy about it. It's like shitty things happen in people's lives. The worst case scenario, the other thing that is, if I had to fire 900 people, I would be giving people heads up this was coming well ahead of time, to the extent that I could, so that they could make other plans. Everybody should start looking for other jobs. You know, ideally you want to tell them they're fired as long in advance before they actually get fired as you can, without going too long, because once they're fired, they're useless. So in other words, you give them a grace period where they continue to have a job while they have a compelling urgency to find a new job. If they are genuinely competent and have some kind of skills, they should be able to find an equivalent job of some sort. And it's like, you know, what else are you going to do? Life's life. You cannot reasonably expect to retain employment when it's not for the good, when it's not in the interest of the company. But you know, it's easy for me to say that shit because I've got lots of safety nets in my personal life and stuff, and I understand that there's a certain amount of safety privilege. So I don't believe in white privilege, and I don't believe in privilege, but I do believe in safety privilege. In other words, I feel safer and have always felt safe about certain sort of, like, I won't ever fall lower than this because I've got safety nets, right? And and so there's something ridiculous about me being so cut and dry about the whole thing, because that's coming from the perspective of somebody who's had safety nets. Nevertheless, ultimately, it's because I care about the possibility of safety nets existing at all that I continue to stress the number one job of any company or corporation is to be financially successful. To the extent that they are, they will need people to do work, useful work, which they will then pay them for. That's how it works. There must first be a need for a specific kind of useful work to be done by one party before an opportunity for new wealth generation occurs. Now, once there's a specific need for work to be done, then there's a demand for someone to do that work. And that person will get paid, right? A lot of studies economically have shown that in almost every instance, people are paid what they're actually worth. That the marketplace eliminates economic enterprises that don't adhere to that. Even if maximizing profit includes outsourcing labor to child slaves in third world countries. Okay, well, no. To the extent that a business's profitability is reliant on slave labor, it's no longer a business, but a criminal racketeering organization. Now, if we get rid of the child slave part, okay, what people don't get, what people like the boss do not understand, is that your thinking plays out like this. Sorry, poor people, you don't get to have the choice to take those jobs. Now, granted, we might agree that children shouldn't work in manufacturing jobs, certainly not for very long hours. However, I don't think child labor in manufacturing jobs is any worse than mandatory school for the same reasons. provided the children are treated humanely in their jobs that they can do that are safe, and they have a reasonable amount of energy directed towards work expected of them, and afforded plenty of opportunity to play, it's the same thing as school. Except it's more useful to everybody, including the children. I mean, school is a catastrophe of rights violations compared to, I mean, like, you want to complain about corporate contributions to rights violations, go to your local public school. That's functionally a concentration camp. Every day, every student there is oppressed from the moment they arrive to the moment they leave. They're oppressed for years, compelled to attend a location, unable to autonomously choose who to be with or who to be around, unable to get away from people who mistreat them should those situations occur, and in fact, told they're guilty of a crime if they autonomously choose to do so. Truancy. It's appalling. So, I mean, I think that it would be great if instead of public schools, we had opportunities for students to make actual money doing labor that was useful in some way. Should they make very little wages? No, they should make the same wages as anybody else. They're still people. If you're going to work an hour, if you think a child's good enough to hire for an hour, you should pay them the going rate. There are some things I would pay a child an hour to do. You know, it's like children can't do everything. They can do some things. Depending on the child as well. Like, it really depends on the kid. I would totally pay Chloe to... Well, Chloe's a bad example. She's my supervisee. It's like, I can't really think of anything that she can do that I can't do better or something. But, like, I mean, I'm even actively sort of trying to get onto the coattails of high school student Jeffrey, who's my client. I'm telling him ideas and saying things like, okay, I'm going to help you a teeny little bit with this, but I want a piece of it. So I don't really want a big piece, but I just don't want him to be, I don't want him to completely forget about me when it works. So, like, at least I want to be first in line at the meow when it happens. I don't want to go into a bunch of details. Anyway, if children working in low-skilled jobs instead of going to school, the prospect of having a skilled, productive workforce is obviously decreased. I mean, I can't think of... Okay, let me answer it this way. There is no disputing that robber baron era labor policies of the United States were bad. To the extent that such policies occur elsewhere in the world now, they are bad. Okay? Let's be clear. Let's also be clear that the current education system is oppressive and bad in the same fashion. Okay, fine. The important takeaway here is, I'm not saying education's bad. I'm saying oppression is bad. We need to take the same approach towards labor. Children working is not bad. It's better than what currently children are slaves. They're forced to work at practicing stuff all the time for nothing. Supposedly it's for their own good, right? So what I'm saying is, instead of making children slaves, let's afford them the opportunity to do at least some of their work that's real. So, let's say I'm a kid who writes a blog, and I'm making money from my writing in 4th grade. And I should not have to go to English class and do English class stuff if it interferes with my work, right? I mean, the point is, practice should never interfere with the game time. You should never say, if you're like a football player, you should never say, oh, coach, I can't go in and play right now in the game that's happening right now. I haven't gotten in all my push-ups that I like to do as practice. The only reason you're doing those push-ups is so you can be better in the game. Here's your opportunity to show how you perform in the game. The reason you're here at all is to be in the game. School has both taken away our instinctual, intuitive sense that we should own what we do, and that what we do should matter. You spend all of your childhood, all through high school, doing practice work. This paper I have to write on, it's just practice work, right? Nobody wants to read it. Nobody wants to publish it. Nobody wants to write it. It's just to help the children practice something. Enslaved practicers will indeed get better at the thing they've been enslaved to practice. So, it is true that if you enslave all the children and make them practice academic nonsense, they'll get better at it. So, for example, your particular expression of wrongness here is expressed more elegantly than it otherwise would have been had it not been for education's good job of teaching you about the robber barons and the child labor period of American history before you beautiful little darlings were liberated into our enslaving academic arms. So the big difference that I would note between those poor child laborers, and there is no doubt that was not acceptable, okay? Those poor child laborers back then and the children now, is that at least they got paid something. Nobody seems to object when there are children who get to do jobs that people see as desirable, such as a 13-year-old professional skater winning the Olympics in Japan. Where is your outrage for child labor? Oh, it's okay because it's amateurs. It's the Olympics. Okay, but she started making bank, right? Off of her image, off of her blah, 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 blah. Would you deny her the opportunity to do that, the right to do that? That's what we are doing en masse with children all across the world. I'm not saying that we should put children into shitty, boring manufacturing jobs that should long since have been replaced by robotics. I'm saying the reason that occurs is because it's better than the other options available for those people at that place at that time. Unfortunately. Unless you're talking about someplace like Dubai where they violate rights and they force people, they sort of indenture them and stuff, right? There's nothing okay about slavery or rights violations or limiting the autonomy of the individuals. But that includes and means that even though it sucks ass, if the best possible choice for this 8-year-old, if he's thrilled to get this job working for shit per day at a manufacturing factory in Calcutta, ask him, do you prefer this shitty job over your alternative? And he said, what alternative? Well, what alternative do you have? Well, I could try to catch fish and sell them for... Why don't you do that instead? Well, now you've got him redirected to another kind of work. No, little boy. No. You need to go to school. What school? Which school? Are you going to put it in the school too? You're going to put it in the hospital, school, and here I am, you savages. I'm going to train you how to teach your children. Oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that fucking sweet? The presumption of stupidity is appalling, isn't it? At no point did whoever that guy was say, I'm going to go ask these children what they think. I'm never going to go ask the people who live near this factory that somebody put up what they think. I'm never going to talk to the factory owner and find out if that factory owner is really evil, faceless, corporate, European conglomerate, or if it's a local guy from India who, through many years of hard work and building it from warehouse to warehouse, finally put together this factory and is now able to do business with international companies. And it's a miracle. The employment rate. I mean, what's the perception of the people there? You're not thinking about it in terms of reality. You're thinking about it in terms of, enslaved child learner indoctrinated in nonsense. Enslaved child learner indoctrinated with nonsense. Oh yeah. Prison should be safe. I agree that prison should afford prisoners. I agree that prison is ideally manifest such that it affords prisoners educational opportunities that they may voluntarily elect to choose or not. It should not be productive. Why should it be productive? What prison is it's a shortening of your life. You are having 3 months removed from your life. It's a way to commit the death penalty in little bits. It's like that machine in the movie Princess Bride that takes years off your life, right? So depending on the severity of your crime, you're going to have X number of years of your life taken away. That's what prison is. If a person is productive, then they're living their life. They're getting to experience the important link between action and meaningful output. It's part of us being human. Now, personally, I'm an American and I'm not particularly a big softie, but I personally would highly favor comfortable prisons. I don't believe we should make people uncomfortable. When I hear about that they keep it at a steady 68 in prison, and I couldn't tolerate that. That's way too cold. I'd be cold all the time. It's like, if you put yourself in a position of how much discomfort would you want to have to face should you happen to run afoul of the criminal justice system. Remember, not everybody in prison is a bad person. Not everybody in prison even committed an actual crime. The laws are very very suspect in terms of their link to justice, especially when it has anything to do with drug crimes. So, given the fact that even in the best case scenario, a certain percentage of the people in prison are going to be factually innocent and we got it wrong, and a certain percentage of the people in prison will have made a mistake but are basically good people and didn't really do much harm, then let's try to be civilized, Let's just try to be civilized. Open showers are I mean, it's definitely dehumanizing, but welcome to my middle school. We had prison showers in my middle school gym. It seems so crazy when I think back about it. There were 3 poles with like drains in the floor, right? Maybe 5 poles, and they each had like pew, like pew, pew, pew spigots coming around from around them, like 5 or 6 different spigots coming from each from the center thing in the middle. That you push the button and it squirted out water for a while, and then you had to push the button again. Um, uh, and it was just. I remember going from elementary school to middle school. Us kids graduating 6th graders who were going into the 7th grade, we were stressed about it a little bit, but it was just kind of like, well, what happens? Just what goes on. So, first day of 7th grade, it's the coaches explain it all to you. This is how PE goes. You come in here, you strip, put all of your school clothes, including your underwear, in the locker. You put on your jock strip, which you have to have, your jock strap, and you put on your PE clothes over that, and your PE shoes, which are also different from your school shoes. And then when you are done with PE, we always end minutes early. You come in here, you take off your PE clothes. You take out your clothes, you put it on the bench, you put your PE clothes in the thing, you get out your soap from the PE locker, you go to the shower, you soap your entire body. Make sure you soap yourself all the way. Don't half-ass it. You're not just there to get wet. Okay, remember that. You're not just there to get wet. It's weird how much I remember from this when I start thinking about it. And then you take your shower and you rinse off all the soap, and then you come back and you put on your regular clothes. You put your soap back in your PE locker and you lock it. And you do it in that order because you don't want your PE clothes to make your regular clothes stink in the locker while you're taking a shower. And you put on deodorant. You have your deodorant in there too. You put on the deodorant at the end. And then every Friday, we remember this most critical reality of all. Today is Friday. PE clothes go home. Don't forget that. Ever. If you don't take your PE clothes home, I'm not going to lie, it's not just the coaches who are going to be upset at you. You're going to be upset at yourself because Monday morning's going to roll around and you're going to have these crusty ass old PE clothes from last week with crusty ass old PE socks, and you're totally not going to want to put them on. You know what I'm saying? Right, well, and Grace has a point. It's not like it depends on when your PE class is, but probably your school clothes aren't really that clean by the time you're done with PE anyway. Yes, physical education. I went to Foothills Junior High, which had a remarkable amount of physical education stuff for just a normal kind of middle school. The reason is, it was literally up against a hill. It had 2 tiers of fields. It had the main lower field that was huge, and then it had the higher field that was big enough for whatever you wanted, but it didn't stretch quite as far as the bottom one. The bottom field may have had a full half-mile track even. It was enormous. But we didn't have any pool. No, we didn't. Did we? We might have had a pool. I don't know. There may have been a pool back there that I never. No, that couldn't have been a pool. We had volleyball courts. Anyway, had a lot of sports stuff there. So, and that's just how PE was back then. You know, I don't remember really any particularly bad things happening at PE. PE was not a particular hotbed of bullying compared to some other environments in the school, which were, I mean, bullying when I went to middle school was, in some instances, hellishly brutal. I wasn't subjected to the worst of it. I wasn't. It's like the amount of bullying I suffered back in my day. It's like, given the fact that everybody got some of, it's like I wouldn't have even qualified as somebody who was bullied. Even though I certainly got bullied some, but some people got bullied mercilessly to the absolute destruction of their lives forever. And it's crazy to think back about it, really. There are a couple scenes that are traumatizing for me to think back about, talk about, remember, and I don't want to. I don't like to, because they're obviously about children being cruel to other children. Okay, so let's move topics. That's really depressing. Just being arrested or charged can fuck up your job opportunities. Ridiculous. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? Do employers even check that? It's like when I was hiring people, I never Googled anybody. I never asked about criminal past or anything like that. I was just looking for the skills and things that I was looking for. And I just didn't really care about anything else. I never asked about people whether they had a college degree or not. I don't give a fuck. Those symbols of competence don't mean shit to me. I can evaluate your actual competence directly. And if you're actually competent, that's rare. Those other ancillary things that might come along with it, who gives a fuck? Those are common. I'm gonna make a cup of coffee now. And I want you to look hard at this yellow head. I want you to look hard at it. I want you to tell me when I come back one magical vision you had while I was gone. Remember, friends, you're being brutally forced to be creative right now, so get on it. You know what I'm saying? You just, with good grace, just accept the brutality of my forcing your creativity right now. You will learn to love it. Hospitals and nursing homes definitely do. They don't want criminals around Grandpa and you, but criminals sometimes are really good with the old. After all, they steal all their gold. The reality is probably, for depending on how long people were away for and stuff, it's quite likely that somebody with a criminal record is not going to commit a crime in their workplace, because they will immediately be suspected of any crime committed anywhere in the vicinity of the workplace first, you know? My only crime is caring too much. Okay? Being too good. That's my crime. So, what do you think your greatest weakness that you bring to this job would be, Eric? Just being so astronomically better at it than everybody else that it makes them feel bad? Would you call yourself a humble person, Eric? Oh, yeah. Totally. Totally. Once I got rid of the false modesty, it's really quite humbling to have to go around and tell the truth about yourself all the time. Let me tell you. After all, here I am sitting talking to you, you're interviewing me, and I've got to answer questions with the truth, knowing that you have no idea what I'm doing or saying. Well, I have some idea. Do you, though? I think. Good for you. I am proud to hear that. I'm proud of you the way that a chicken farmer is proud of the hens that he has bred of a unique sort, a unique strain, a Rhode Island red, perhaps crossed with a checkered blue. And when he sees that ribbon on his chicken's chest, he says, aha, what a wonderful job I've done today. You feel just like that, don't you? I think you were saying that you feel like that. Oh, right. I feel exactly like that. And that's my biggest weakness. Now do you understand? And what's your biggest strength that you can bring to this company, Eric? Well, the biggest strength? I mean, the biggest strength is probably Tsar Bomba, the largest nuclear bomb ever set off in all of the world's history, which was ignited by the Soviets deep in the Siberian jungle and erupted windows as far as 400 miles away in Finland. You do remember you're at a job interview, don't you, sir? Yes, I know. I am at a job interview. I'm hoping to get this job. What am I applying for again? You're applying for personnel director of our corporation. And what does your corporation do again? We do business-to-business deals with platform and interface solutions so the corporations can handle their logistics better. Ooh, that sounds like some boring-ass stuff. Well, let me tell you. First of all, first thing I'm going to do for you is your new employee. We haven't hired you yet. Well, you will. Don't worry. First thing I'm going to do for you is your new employee. Let's change your description of what kind of work you do. Instead of saying you do these business-to-business platform connectivity thing, say, we make hot shit. Like that. People respect that, you know? It's vague, but it's clear how you feel about it. Okay, duly noted. Can we get back to the interview, please? I got more suggestions. You know those potted plants you got out in the lobby? Yeah. I may have accidentally killed one. And how did you do that? I poured my cup of meow into it. Or at least I thought it was my cup of meow, which is coffee, which you see in my hand here. But it wasn't. It was a container that I found someplace that had this blue chemical in it. I'm not going to lie, I did realize before I started to pour it that it wasn't my coffee, it was this blue stuff. And I thought about not doing it for a second. Well, I'm like, And I did it. And I looked, okay, it'll be fine. But as I was walking in here, I saw it starting to wilt. It looks like I might have killed it. Where did you get this blue stuff? Oh, I went into a custodian's closet down on the second floor. I had found the keys hanging in a security office. The security officer left briefly. There were keys that said custodial office 2A. So I went in there, and they had these jugs of this blue stuff. So I poured some into a glass, and I said, I shouldn't do this because if I drop a glass, then I'll have broken glass. I'm trying to get a job. So I was going to pour out my coffee then and transfer it into the styrofoam cup. But I saw that, I guess the janitor or whatever had left a coffee cup just like mine sitting right there. So I just filled that one up. And then I got tired of my coffee when I was up here because, well, I didn't really have enough powdered creamer to put into it. So that's when I decided to pour it out. But then I poured out the blue stuff instead. And then I decided, you know what? I will just drink the rest of it. The point is, I'm sorry I killed your plant. Okay, can we get back to this job interview, please? Sure, yeah, sure. So, I mean, I see a lot of good stuff here on your resume. Yeah, says you've got 6 years of experience in network technologies. Yeah, oh yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Yeah, I've been Googling shit for years. I go on YouTube a lot. And okay, so which network technologies are you using? The internet? But have you worked as an employee exactly on this? Yeah, of course. I help my dad do it sometimes. He sometimes gives me money. Have you worked for a corporation? Well, I mean, sure, I spent my years at Sun Microsystems and Oracle doing back-end IT stuff. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that you want that kind of experience. Oh yeah, I was the leading designer on the team that built Skyrim, and then after that, I went to more of a financial industries end of things. I helped PayPal redesign their interface system for mobile. You know that new thing they got where you get an entry for a contest? That was me. Do you use PayPal? Oh yeah, that was my idea. Wow, for a second there, I thought you didn't know anything about this. Oh no, I got years and years and years of experience. So, what languages do you code in? English. What else would I code in? What are you, bilingual or something around here? I mean, what programming languages? Oh, I use mostly the Apple IIe computer for my programming. It's kind of, I don't know what it's called. It's kind of an older language. You know, you put like 10, you put question mark means print, and then you can write what you want it to say, and then like 20, go to 10, you know? You know what language that's called? No, and you're saying you did all this work on these mobile apps using that language? Oh, no. I use contemporary coding languages for that, like Python and stuff like that, you know. But no, I'm talking about my hobby coding, where I do my really important work. Oh, so you code for a hobby as well? Yeah. Okay, why don't you tell us, what are you working on with your hobby coding? I'm trying to code a virus that will crash every single financial institution in the world simultaneously while concurrently launching all the nuclear weapons. It's a challenge, but, you know, if I can do it by 2028, I get a $1 million bonus from the super villain. Are you already employed by somebody else right now? Are you currently employed by somebody else? No. That's not an employment thing we got. It's more like a hippity how, hippity he, you know? It's sort of like a, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours thing. I, independently of this guy, wanted to just to see, you know, what would happen to do this. I wanted to crash all the financial institutions and launch all the nuclear missiles at once. And it just so happened, this other guy's like, hey, I want the same thing. Maybe I can help you. I said, I don't need your help. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you do it, I'll give you $1 million. I said, hey, that's fine with me. I'll take it. I could use $1 million. Of course, it won't be worth anything in the post-apocalyptic hellscape, but it doesn't matter. I'll still feel like I finally did it. I got $1,000,000 in my hand right now. I'm feeling like Frank Sinatra on a night on the town. So anyway, that's called being creative. We're playing creativity tonight. If you'd like to play creativity, go ahead and join in. You can play the role of Abilene, the boss's secretary from North Dakota, whose small town innocence belies a dark secret beneath. What's her dark secret? She's actually a male penguin who got a sex and species change. That's why she's constantly eating fish and swimming. Boy, that Abilene loves to swim, comment the other characters. Why do her arms and hands look so much like flippers? California's fine. My goodness. You know, it's funny the way the media shapes people's perceptions on things so much. People think California's going to hell in a handbasket. First of all, California's always been going to hell in a handbasket. I can never remember a time when there weren't pockets of just ugh. Now, granted, alright, that's true. It was SI. Morris caught me. Next time I'll try to start with something more fantastical instead of simply relating word for word exactly what happened in a real job interview. But regardless, the thing is, California is mostly fine. It's just there are certain areas of Los Angeles that have certain homeless encampments. There are some stuff's kind of like. But it seems like at least LA County is starting to kind of deal with it by hemming it in. Like, okay, fine, you guys have this, but stay there. So is it an ideal solution? No, but Los Angeles is a big city. Depending on where you go in it, you've got more or less ugly bits, right? In contrast, San Francisco is an absolute disaster of a clusterfuck of a failure of bad policy making over the course of decades. I've never felt in Los Angeles ever once. Okay, no, that's not true. Recently, I did once. It was when I was going to downtown LA during the pandemic, and I was taking pictures of mostly whatever, but included Grandsdale Park, which at the time, because it was closed for COVID, had been filled up with tents of homeless people in the parking lot. Rachel and I ended up going back to the same park like 6 months later or something recently, and it was very nice. It's like they don't let any homeless people in there, and there's a lot of security, and I didn't see any sign of anything like that. And it's just called Grandsdale Art Park. It's got this one of these houses that Frank Lloyd Wright built is kind of the centerpiece of it, and then it's got a performing arts center thing where you can watch plays, and it's got a branch to the library up there. There's no graffiti. It's on top of a little hill. It's right in the heart of Hollywood, too. It's great. In San Francisco, that park would be teeming with homeless people and unusable by citizens. LA's reclaiming all the parks and public spaces, which I appreciate. Well, lexicon artist, I have presented my solution for homelessness before, and I will present. It's been a long time though, so I will tell you right now. There's only one way to deal with homelessness. In the status quo, the Supreme Court has ruled that basically cities can't dislodge homeless people from public spaces unless they have some place for them to go, which has prompted a lot of localities to start generating housing for homeless people. Unfortunately, what the Supreme Court ruling really did is it made this a federal matter. Because every time a locality builds more services for homeless people, other localities direct homeless people to that locality. To create services for homeless people is to make yourself a homeless hub. Since this is inevitably the consequence, the solution is to have a federal homeless hub. Have all the money that localities are currently spending on homeless services and stuff, which is just wasted, more or less, because it doesn't deal with anything structurally. It just treats the problem as a band-aid-y kind of a thing. Go into a central, middle of nowhere place that we're going to tone-deafly call Homeless Town, okay? In Homeless Town, they have all of the various services that homeless people actually need. We've got plenty of mental health services, drug services, every kind of service. In Homeless Town, you don't have to live in a house. You can live on the streets if you want. But you'll have housing available for you if you want. Because not all homeless people want to live inside. Some of them want to live on the street. Homeless Town will be customized to meet all the homeless people's needs and provide for homeless people the thing that homeless people like, which is lots of autonomy, not a lot of responsibility, and ideally plenty of drugs. Or drug treatment, one of the two, take your pick. First the drugs, then the drug treatment, I guess. It goes in that order usually. The thing is, by federalizing it and preventing localities from ever providing homeless services, then it's very simple to adhere to that Supreme Court ruling. The localities can say, you are guilty of vagrancy, you are a homeless person. However, here's a bus ticket, one way to Homeless Town, where they have everything you need. That way, the homeless problem is dealt with in segregation from the rest of the society. Because the biggest problem that homeless people present for the vast majority of people is that they interfere with their ability to enjoy their city. Now, from the homeless people's perspective, that's not the problem, right? From the bleeding heart advocate's perspective, that's not the problem. But that is the problem, actually. So let's solve that while not being inhumane, while being compassionate and decent people. I'm not in favor of doing nothing for the homeless. I'm not in favor of let's just round them off and send them to death camps or something like that, or anything like that. I recognize that there, but for the grace of God go I. But I don't want them fucking up my enjoyment of my city. And that's all there is to it. I don't want to feel guilty and sad when I get cigarettes that there's a homeless guy in the cold outside of 7-Eleven that I have to look at. Is that incredibly selfish of me? Not if I have a better solution, which I do. I mean, I don't see homeless people as particularly dangerous at all, except in San Francisco. The only place until I was taking pictures down there, the guy thought I was taking pictures of his homeless stuff, and that I was being all like, see where LA is coming to, which is not what I was doing. But he came up and he was very threatening, and regardless, I evacuated myself from the situation easily enough without sacrificing too much dignity too. I was just like, what are you doing? taking pictures of what? Whatever I feel like. Well, you better not be, man. I'm going to take that phone from you. I'm like, well, you asked the question, you got your answer. And that was sufficient for me to extricate myself from the situation. But prior to that, I had never had a single experience. Well, actually, I had another one with Abraham, but that was a gang thing, okay? But prior to that, I never had a single experience with a homeless person that made me feel concerned at all, except in San Francisco where they're all scary. It seems like. I mean, look, I am absolutely, I respect the fact that there, but for the grace of God go I. I too could be homeless in a different universe, right? Where I wasn't born with lots of advantages. I get that. I am not saying that homeless transient folks don't deserve respect. But I am saying that I deserve to live in a neighborhood where I deserve to live in a nice neighborhood where I don't have to deal with that shit, right? If, at least, I can accomplish that in a sane, humane, and sensible fashion. Because of that Supreme Court ruling, there's no way to structurally deal with homelessness that's not federal. And every attempt to do so by localities will inevitably incentivize homeless people to go to their place and incentivize other localities to send their homeless people to that place. So you will always receive, as a city or a locality, you will always incur harms. In addition, new harms, new need to provide services for every service you provide. I used to live in Pomona. This is what Pomona and LA do. LA sends their homeless people to Pomona. Pomona then sends them back to LA or to Riverside, at which point they send them back to Pomona or LA, telling them on each of those stops they have homeless services in Pomona for you. They get to Pomona, they go, we have no services for you. They have homeless services for you in Riverside. They get to Riverside. They say, we have no homeless services for you. They have homeless services for you in Los Angeles County. Here's another train ticket. Get back on the train. We get to Los Angeles County. We have no homeless services for you. Go to Pomona. This is what happens right now. Okay? The reason Pomona got on this list is because they made the mistake of trying to deal with their homeless problem by trying to provide housing and services. And as soon as news of the plan got out, before it was even implemented, busloads of homeless people started arriving in Pomona. So, the thing is, I can tell you it makes me uncomfortable. Yes, my comfort does mean something. Absolutely it does. Absolutely. So it's like, when I left the supermarket after getting like turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and stuff like that, and then went to the gas station to get cigarettes, and I was annoyed because, there was traffic, and I was being like kind of, come on, people, get out of my way. Yeah. And then I was driving out of the gas station, and I see a homeless person lying on the sidewalk right there. And I have this moment of heartache and empathy and compassion and sorrow and sadness and shame at my own plenty, right? That's only good if there isn't a solution. If there is a solution, then it's bad. I don't need to learn that lesson if we've successfully solved the problem. I only need to learn that lesson if we haven't. And I shouldn't incur the consequences of that lesson because it's not my fault. I have the solution. I presented it multiple times. So somebody else should feel bad about it. Maybe at least you should feel bad about it because you didn't solve homelessness like I did. No, I don't have to poo. Lexicon artist, did you not listen to a single thing I said? That was Pomona's plan. Build a bunch of homes, cheap housing things for homeless people. Before they even broke ground, busloads of homeless people started arriving in Pomona to take advantage of these services. So, remember, you're talking about states, but that's not the level at which homelessness is dealt with. It can never be. It will always be dealt with at the city level until and unless it's dealt with at the federal level. So, you might say, well, they could build houses for the homeless and the state could build them and meh. Well, then you're just shifting the problem from the locality level to the state level. And all of a sudden, those states that choose to solve the homeless problem have states that don't say, wonderful, here's our solution. Now we have somewhere to send them, as per the Supreme Court. We'll send them to California because California provides services. Won't work. Won't work. You're just dumping your problem onto somebody else, or you're just choosing to invite others to dump their problem onto you. That's why it must be federalized. If you have a central federal city, like Washington, D.C. is a federal city, right? Like you have another one in the middle called, don't call it homeless town, okay? I like to call it that because I think it's a funny name for it. No offense, Elise S., by the way. I know you're actually homeless, and I actually do think about you and sometimes wonder if I should do something or something. But I get that you have a special privilege to be fussy about this shit. I get it. But I want you to trust that I do not have contempt for homeless people. I do not look at them and get angry. Like, how dare you get in my line of sight? I don't like feeling sad. I don't like feeling guilty. I don't like there being a bunch of mess I have to walk around. I don't like the occasional human feces on the sidewalk, right? I don't like that stuff. And it's okay for me not to like that. At least S, I'm the first person you've ever heard talk about this who's actually said anything intelligent about it. And you're telling me it's a complex issue? You've never heard anybody else solve the problem before. You've never heard anybody else articulate exactly why existing solutions won't work. You've never heard anybody else explain why just because somebody is experientially objecting to homeless people doesn't mean that they hold them in contempt or hate them or are angry at them. You've never heard anybody else talk about this subject meaningfully until right now. Don't tell me it's a complex issue. Tell anybody else you talk to about it. You have a better case to make than talking to me about it like that, right? You may be homeless, but my words are more correct about homelessness than anybody else's in the history of the world. So that's just how it is. So tell me where I'm wrong. What have I said that's wrong? Have you ever heard anybody else articulate exactly why it is it needs to be federalized? Because there's a specific reason. And if they give you some other reason, they're just talking out their ass. Okay, well, I'm asking you. I'm saying, has anybody else ever else told you this about homelessness? Has anybody else ever said, here's why it has to be federalized? Here's why cities are currently doing it the way they're doing it? And here's why that will inevitably not work? And how, indeed, society does have some responsibility to provide services and care for homeless people. And that it needs to be centralized so that it doesn't interfere with the experience of people who aren't in that position. There is a old saying, beggars can't be choosers, which is somewhat applicable here. It is absolutely the case that we should humanely and compassionately deal with homeless people and treat them as people, not as objects or animals or something like that, right? And it's also the case that every person who places that kind of a burden on society has to acknowledge that they're going to give up some of their ability to define how the problem they present gets solved. Why is that not a practical solution and simply shifting the money will change things? So I explained very specifically why a centrally located federal facility of some sort, or I guess you'd say services provision hub, why it would work, why it would cost less than the current approach overall. Why would you say it's not practical? And in fact, simply shifting the money is not what we're doing. Making the matter a federal matter rather than a state or local matter means physically having homeless people in a different location, in one location. Now note, I'm not in favor of, by and large, forcing homeless people to go to homeless town, okay? I'm saying if we make homeless town that much more of a place to be for people in need of those kind of services than any other alternative, that's where they'll go. Additionally, we will empower localities when they have persistent vagrancy problems that are preventing citizens from using the sidewalks and the public spaces as they're intended, that those individuals can be given bus tickets and said, sorry, you have to go. That Supreme Court says you can do that if you have some place for them to go. Remember, all of what I'm saying is predicated on a Supreme Court decision that I bet you didn't even know existed. Okay, so Elise S. says all of the shelters are full in Arizona. All of them. How many of the people in the shelters in Arizona are Arizonans originally? That's kind of an important question, right? Because not every state has built a bunch of shelters. Arizona's are all full. And therefore, Arizona's solved its homeless problem because it's taken all of its homeless Arizonans and put them in their Arizona shelters. Is that what's happened? No. How many of the people in those shelters are not from Arizona? If you are homeless and you're trying to figure out what to do and where to go, what's one of the first questions you're going to ask? You're going to say, where can I find a homeless shelter where I can get a bed, or a roof over my head at night? Where can I go? There's like nothing here in Ohio. Well, go to Arizona, dude. They got a lot more homeless services there. I'll pay for your train ticket. Right? That's how it happens. That's what goes down. Because people are capable of asking questions and making decisions for themselves. If you are homeless, you are not completely unable to make decisions and do things, and you're going to make wise decisions to the extent that you can. It makes more sense to be homeless in a city with a warm climate than a cold climate. It makes more sense to be in a city that has more homeless services than fewer. And you have the capacity to move from one location to another. These things are undeniable. No, Elise, I've already told you I have no such experience whatsoever. To the extent that you want to say that homeless shelters are either good or bad, to the extent that you want to say that they are anything whatsoever, you're ignoring what I'm saying, which is we want to maximally attain the best possible homeless services in a centrally located spot that's funded and run by the federal government for the reasons articulated. So let's say you're going to talk to me about what I would learn about homeless shelters being bad if I were to visit them. Well, that would be solved by my plan. Let's say you were going to talk to me about what homeless shelters do well if I were to visit them. Well, that's what I'm advocating we should do better, only that over there. So you need to pull back and actually hear what I'm saying. So if I were to go to a local shelter and spend a night there, what would I learn? That the states and the cities are doing a good job of managing this? Would I learn that? Just tell me what I'd learn. I'll accept that you know better than I about this, okay? Would I learn that the states and the cities are doing a good job? No, I'm asking you a question, Elisa. I will not do it. I will not do it. If you can't answer my question about what, in other words, you're trying to make a point, right? You're saying, if I had the experience, then I'd know, meow. I'm willing to accept meow. So just tell me what it is you think I'm going to learn. At least S. My point is that the current homeless solutions are inadequate. I don't need to tour a homeless shelter to know that a homeless shelter is a shitty place to be in. I don't need to get down and dirty within the tents to recognize that tent city next to the freeway is full of homeless people. So what's your point? That we need to do it differently, or we're doing it perfectly right now? Which is your point? You get to choose one of them. It doesn't matter why I want this excellent solution. Okay, so Karma's Pimp says, I don't think that's anywhere close to her point. She's accusing you of simply wanting them out of sight without solving the problem. Now, if she's accusing me of simply wanting them out of sight without solving the problem, then she's not listened to what I've said, because I'm the only person she's ever heard in her entire life actually solve the problem. Nobody else has ever said this to her. Nobody else has ever spoken anywhere close to this intelligently about homelessness to her. So, if, however, she's concerned that, yes, Eric, you do present a good solution, but you want that solution for the wrong reason, well, it doesn't matter what my reason is. Maybe it is true that I want that solution because I don't want to look at them. But that's fine, so long as the solution is better than the status quo, doesn't violate rights, is moral and upright and whatever. My personal motivations are irrelevant. I mean, if the argument were, is homelessness a problem that needs to be dealt with? And you were arguing, no, it's a beautiful flower growing in our cities, then my experience would be relevant to the conversation. But that's not what you're arguing. I don't know what you're arguing. You don't either, apparently. No, it would be better to have it centrally located in one place. What we want to do is prevent bleed over into the cities as much as possible without using any force or coercive measures. So there will not be a fence around homeless town that prevent them from getting out. Okay? Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean we want to facilitate their reintegration into regular society before they have the means to support themselves, have a place to live, etc. Right? So we do want to have it centrally located in a very remote spot. It takes a long time to get there, and nothing's preventing them from leaving, but it's remote. It's hard to leave. You gotta, garner the money for a bus ticket or something. So at least it helps keep. It's like you want the drain to be at the lowest point of the floor, and same thing with this. You want it to be somewhere in the center, and as far away from everything else as possible. Just so we're all clear, there are more vacant properties in America than there are homeless people. Oh my God, then all those homeless people should buy those properties. Then they'd have homes. Or are you advocating that the property owners just have their property stolen from them? Are you suggesting that we encourage squatting? The thing is, for people who own a piece of property that's empty, they are bleeding money. They're desperately trying to find somebody who can occupy that space. Because they're still paying insurance, they're still paying taxes, property taxes and such. How many of those vacant properties, the boss, do you own currently? And what percentage of those will you give to homeless people? Decommodification of the real estate market. So let's talk about Tom and Mary, who've been working 60-hour weeks for the last 10 years of their marriage. They're in their mid-30s. They bought now a second property as a rental property. Finally, they saved up enough. And, they've got years and a full decade of huge labor, effort, time, energy, planning put in to this nest egg. And they bought the rental property, which they're going to rent out at a higher rate than the amount they have to pay for mortgage, insurance, and stuff. And they're going to start getting ahead a little bit. They're going to start putting away some extra money so that when they retire, they'll be able to do things they want to do and stuff. Uh-oh, here comes the boss. He's stolen their house. Even though it represents 10 long years of labor, blood, tears. The boss doesn't care. After all, it's very easy for him to say, decommodify, without thinking at all about the people who are harmed. And assuming, Robert Mugabe style, that the people he purports to help can actually be helped in that way. What happened in Zimbabwe when Robert Mugabe took the farms from the white landholders and split them into plots and gave it to all of the native black people in the area? What happened? Were people better off as a consequence? What happened, the boss? Since you're making these kind of advocacies, you know full well what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Zimbabwe, right? Where they actually attempted what you're talking about? Since you're in favor of it, you know well this example. You've got the rebuttal in place. Obviously, you've studied examples where it didn't go the way you wanted so that you could make sure you were right about it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me. What happened? Rachel's been homeless. Or just about. She stayed at like a halfway house before and stuff. She has mental health problems. She has bipolar mania. So I'm not that far away from personal experience with these kind of things. This is one of those situations where decent human beings have a moral responsibility to hear what I am actually saying, acknowledge the correctness of it, and learn something. It would be so much fairer if we blew up all the houses, as Oliver Linehand says, because then there wouldn't be any homeless people. We'd all just be a bunch of wonderful, free, camping under the stars people. There's no such thing as pretty bipolar. Bipolar mania is not like something like so-called ADHD, which happens kind of more or less or whatever. It's not something like BPD that expresses as in sort of these different forms of trust problems. Bipolar mania is like it's like you have to take a pill to stop yourself from being on acid. When you see a bipolar mania person have a psychotic break, then you know what real crazy is. And you realize, okay, whatever skepticism I had about mental illness has passed. Now I recognize this is what a real mental illness looks like. And there's nothing less real about it than a broken arm or something. It is as real as it gets. And, she's like the kind of crazy you hear about in movies where she's talking to me and thinks I'm her ex-boyfriend Billy, where she's squirting a hose in the car in the garage in order to prevent some family member from having sex with somebody in my dad's car. That's crazy, right? Like, you're in a full blast psychotic break. So, the good news about that kind of crazy is if you get the right kind of drug combination, it turns off. It's like a volcano. Volcanoes rarely do much good, okay, when they erupt. Sure, they might create some new land into the sea. I suppose that's not all bad. Sure, they might present some pretty dramatic displays with their fiery eruptions. But ultimately, you're better off with a dormant volcano, right? Now, something like BPD tends to be more like Kilauea in Hawaii. It's always sort of erupting, but there are times when it's peaceful enough that you can go near it and look at it, right? It's not dormant, but it's also not like Vesuvius, kill everybody in a massive eruption of ash kind of thing, right? So, yeah, different kind of mental issues require different solutions. For homeless people with mental health issues, there's a decent chance that they've been strung along for years, denied a simple solution that would solve the problem. Rachel spent 10 years in the hands of incompetent mental health professionals who made her Vesuvius-style mental illness into a Kilauea-style mental illness. In other words, they refused to cure it, so they'd have to continue treating it for 10 years. Rachel's on a combination of three things, okay? The benzos help her sleep, But the thing that really sort of cured it was a combination of olanzapine and Prozac plus a sleep aid, which is a Clonny. But as soon as the olanzapine and the Prozac got together, bam. And the thing is, they sell that as a new drug. In other words, some pharmaceutical company said, okay, we keep trying to come up with good drugs. We can't really come up with one. Anybody got any ideas? Why don't we mix this, half of this and half of this together and see what happens? And sure enough, it was the magic bullet. And psychiatrists who are in the know are aware that this particular combination seems to be uniquely, dramatically better than any other treatment. So, but, you know, the HMO, Rachel wasn't receiving mental health services from the government in general, although I think the state of New York paid for some of it. She was receiving it partially through her parents' HMO insurance or something. None of those parties have any actual interest in fixing Rachel. You know, the state of New York is just, it's just like this crunching through the bureaucracy, right? And Rachel's mom's good at dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure she fills out the paperwork. So here comes the checks from New York to Mercy Medical Center, which wants to keep receiving those checks along with a check from the HMO. So now they've diagnosed Rachel with bipolar, with cannabis addiction that she needs to be treated for on an ongoing basis because it's so deeply linked to her bipolar. That way. And so it's like when she went back to New York, what did she do when she was in New York? Well, her parents had her go to crazy camp. She had to go to crazy camp. It was like they have this camp, I guess. You know, basically like you go there and you do talk therapy and stuff. And yeah. The model of treatment they had for Rachel made as much sense as if I had a broken arm and they said, well, you need some talk therapy, you need to stop smoking marijuana, you need to have a better attitude, you need to do some art therapy. Hey, I got an idea. Maybe you could fix my broken arm instead and I could stop coming back to this stupid place? I mean, look. I don't know what people are talking about with the benzos, not liking benzos or whatever. If you're using benzos properly, you only take it before you go to sleep. And it does help you sleep. Now, it's true, you will get addicted to them, and if you try to stop taking them, then I guess it's a uncomfortable kick. I guess I've heard it described as you feel like you want to tear your skin off, but like last night, I was feeling gacky at the end of the day, which is to say, I was still up from having taken the Adderall, but I was physically uncomfortable because it's like, you know, this couch isn't very comfortable. It's not good for me to sit on because it's too low. I need a higher chair. I've been sitting in this thing for a year now, over a year, and I keep thinking about replacing the seating in here, but never got around to it. Well, Fly Guy, one of the things I absolutely love about Rachel is her role as an example of what happens when you listen to Eric instead of stupid people. I mean, I knew right away that this whole marijuana thing had nothing to do with Rachel's mental health. That it was an ancillary thing. You've gone through benzo withdrawal after a month of very low use. It was terrible. Always taper off of them. I mean, I take it. I take like half a Clonny. Not every day. Every few days, maybe. Sometimes I'll go a week without taking it. I don't know. So maybe if you if you don't do it every day, you don't really get addicted. But I've never felt anything fiendy for them at all. I don't feel fiendy for them. Like, when I was feeling super gacked out last night, I did want to take a Clonny because it makes me physically feel more relaxed. But then I had also a typing session at 2 in the morning. So I ended up taking a full Clonny and 2 Adderalls. That's juicy. I'll tell you that. That's some juicy juice right there. Of course, the problem with benzos is you typically don't. Benzos are like roofies, kind of. You don't really remember that well when what happened when you were on benzos, if anything, which is why they're best for sleeping. You were with Tom Cruise on this topic, psychiatrist or the new priests. I mean, Rachel's psychiatrist. Kitty! God! Can you constantly be in the way? Can you please not constantly be in the way? Cat underfoot is a very annoying phenomenon, you know? The thing is about psychiatrists, Rachel's psychiatrist was obviously played the role of a good doctor, not a priest. He took a person who was sick and he cured her. There's nothing magical or imaginary, metaphysical, talk therapy-ish, or anything else about Rachel's mental health issue. There's absolutely zero magic involved in curing Rachel's mental health issue. Zero placebo effect. So, to say that psychiatrists are the new priests would be to invalidate the excellent doctor work that Dr. Ingram did. He did exactly what a doctor is supposed to do, not what a priest is supposed to do. Kalani's pretty strong, I guess. But the thing is this. You always gotta... It's just like Spicoli said in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You've got to craft your buzz. You know? You really gotta craft your buzz. Gnostic forgeries. You know, I tell you what's very, very true is that gnocchi are just Gnostic forgeries of non-potato dumplings. It's true. Gnocchi. Why would you spell your name with a G-N in the front? Gnocchi. Get over yourself already. How self-important do gnocchis have to be to spell their name with a G-N? Not in my world, Fly Guy. I'm not going to give in to their Y imperialism. Yo. If you want me to pronounce that yoki, you better spell it yoki. If you're going to spell it G-N, I'm going to pronounce it gnocchi. Alright? I mean, it took Rachel a long time to find one, too. So, at least ask. The thing is, at the end of the day, you are genuinely getting mad at the wrong guy here. I am as big an ally as you're going to find who's not an idiot. So, in other words, most people who would purport to be allies of the homeless are idiots and don't have anything productive to say about the matter. And no matter how well intentioned, how loving, their efforts will at best temporarily help in certain circumstances, and at worst make things systemically even more of a challenge. So people who are serious, like me, I want you to understand that when it comes to public policy, I am always 100% on everyone's side, because what I advocate is 100% correct. Since it's correct and the best thing to do, it's the best for everybody. Given that which is most just is best for everybody, this will always be the case. Now, granted, there will be instances when I turn out to be wrong, and an idea I haven't considered, an argument I haven't heard, turns out to be the superior argument. Those moments are rare and getting rarer. So, what I'm saying to you, at least, is you don't need to advocate alone. Right now, you're a warrior out there striking out in every direction, assuming just about everybody is not on your side. I am on your side. And I'm better than just on your side. I'm on your side in a way you might not like, but it's the only way that matters. So in other words, I'm meaningfully on your side, and I'm not paying you lip service. If there's anybody whose position on homelessness you should support, it's mine. And that's one to grow on. Yeah, it sure is. What are we going to grow on it, you might say? Mushrooms. Psilocybin mushrooms. Hopefully. I still haven't gotten any mushrooms. How long have I been looking for mushrooms? Like 6 months now or something? I can't get mushrooms for shit. Look, if anybody has psychology shit going on, psych shit going on, mental health issues going on, talk to Dr. Ingram. I'll give you his number or contact, Luminella shit or whatever. That guy, you can trust. I originally thought he was an INTP. I still think he's an INTP, but it's possible he's an INFP. Regardless, he's any tool, and he cares a lot. Like, so he might be an INFP. Like, he really cares about solving your problem. He really wants to know how the drugs are impacting you, and he really wants to find the perfect combination so that he can stop talking to you. It's like he even, I'm sure there are laws that say like you're supposed to have this many meetings with Rachel because she's, but he doesn't even charge us for, like, it's like he's perfectly, as long as Rachel's healthy, he's perfectly happy. He doesn't need to squeeze money out of us. He was expensive in an initial thing, but he's not trying to milk us as customers, right? He saw his role as, they're hiring me And I'm supposed to solve this problem in 4 sessions. I indicated ahead of time, I need this many meetings to make sure I get the medication right. And he did. How much better is that than any other model of mental health? Well, I hope your birth mom's still alive somewhere as well. I want her to be safe and okay. But I guess I just can't live this lie any longer. At least I'm your birth mother. I'm sorry I gave you up. It was a dark time for me. I was eating a lot of Slim Jims. And they've got a lot of preservatives in them. I developed a bit of an allergy to some of the tannins in the meats. And the doctors recommended I go to a health sanitarium in the dry deserts of Michoacan. It's there that I got my sex change operation when I accidentally slipped and fell on a man's severed genitals, and they shoved deeply up into my vagina in such a way that they fused over the course of a couple of days. When I finally got to the doctors, they said we can't even remove it anymore. Plus, it looks like you've grown a Y chromosome. I said, well, I guess that makes me a man now. The only problem is, I don't think I'm going to be able to fulfill my role as mother for Elise any longer. It's probably kinder if I just disappear. I hope that story provides you some solace. I want you to know I've thought about you every single day since I was forced to give you up. Not a day has passed when I haven't thought, my gorgeous, beautiful angel Elise is out there somewhere. And now I'm a man who's unrecognizable. She's never even going to believe me if I tell her. So, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my chest, at least, because since I first saw you here, I've been battling back and forth. Should I tell her? Should I not? That I'm her birth mother? Well, now you know. Sweetie, come to mommy. Come to mommy. Eric, stop making jokes about Elise's trauma. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Trauma and jokes go together like horse and carriage. Elise S. loves coming here because she enjoys my hilarious send-ups of her genuinely horrible trauma. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't think that's hilarious? It's like, at least ask, could you have picked a more, entitled, privileged person to watch? You have so much reason to complain about things being fundamentally unfair. Because it would take a lot of effort for me to be homeless. I'd have too many people trying to help me all the time, I'd have to really just, yeah. Whereas it sounds to me like you never really you were not set up to succeed from the get-go. And that's horrible and unfair, It really is. And what's amazing is that you're here watching me. Because what it turns out is that you and I are allies, even though you find that hard to believe. I mean, after all, I am your birth mother. And that means something still these days. Again, for the first time. I'm going to play a couple songs and call it a stream. My voice is giving out. What's it giving out? Halloween candy. What else would it give out? Hand jobs? Okay, well, yeah, it's giving out hand jobs too, but mostly Halloween candy. Occasionally, you know, someone will stop by thinking, because we're right next door to Fajot Buffet. Then maybe I'll give her the hand job, but mostly candy. Women's handbags, so stylish and fine. Women's style shoes, uncomfortable but fine. No, we don't sell bath supplies. No, we don't sell loofah. No, we don't sell candles or jewelry neither. If you want to know the truth, it's to be found, forsooth it's not the French Peugeot, I'm afraid. It's not something awful today. Instead, it's Fajot Buffet. That's the strangely long and aimless jingle for Fajot Buffet. Your country is a commie country. Oh yeah? Well, you're fascist. Nuh-uh. You're fascist. Nuh-uh. You're commie. I'm a big fan of communism and I would embrace it. Except I kind of have grown attached to some of my shit. I mean, sure, someone else might need a propane torch, but if I gave them mine, then I would have to travel north to the Home Depot to get another one, which I would then have to give away again. I'm a big fan of communism, except I like my stuff. You can't have my torch and you can't have my butt. I'd rather keep my objects 'cause I own them, see. And I don't want a commie to make me give my things away to people today, just because those people don't have the means to pay. I didn't once either, but eventually I did, and that's why I bought it, and I own it there again. If they want that as well, then they should find the means. Or if they don't, they could just ask me, please. I reject the notion of anybody's right to force away from me that I want in a fire called labor and work. Earning money too gets converted my time into things that I buy and do. If you want to take possession from me, you're really stealing my time, stealing my life, avoiding me, invalidating what I can do for him and she and anybody else you see, because implicit to success is implicit motivation. That's right. We can't compel communitarianism on people without robbing them of their legitimate agency. In other words, I won't do things that I don't want to do. If you force me to, I will do them poorly. Unavoidably true. And that's the downfall of communism, right? Nobody knows what you should do better than you. Nobody knows how you should spend your money better than you. Nobody knows how you should treat your object that you purchased better than you. If you think you're some sort of pro-commie person, you better throw that phone or whatever it is, other device it is that you're using to hear this live stream. That's capitalist corruption right there. Anybody who is using a digital device to communicate online the virtues of communism or the horrors of capitalism is totally retarded. Think about it, right? Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. How come we are able to communicate like this? Because we have the capacity to convert utility to others into wealth for ourselves. I have good reason to be useful to other people. It's like, why did I have this typing session sale and now I'm having this rush of sessions? Because I needed some extra money for Christmas. So, in order to garner additional buying capacity for myself, I must provide utility to others. And I do so at an alarmingly low rate, frankly. So when I talked to that ISTJ guy, I thought it was fun. I tried to wrap it up a couple of times before the end of it. He didn't pick up on the FEQs, of course. But it ran longer than I wanted. It was a full 2 hours. He paid $50 for it. I'm making $25 an hour? What? Yeah. I'm the greatest typologist in the world. I'm the most correct person in the world about public policy. I mean, in the entire world. Eric, you can't possibly say that. That can't possibly be true. Except it is. It took me a long time to believe this. I had to hear zillions of people purporting to be smart before I realized, oh my God, I am actually the single rightest person in the world. It's crazy. Who could have? There's 7 billion people. How can I be the only one who's completely right? But it's true. It's a mystery to me as well. A mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a delicious tortilla called Nobody Listens to Eric's Genius, and he occasionally gets frustrated. Eric, you really need to be taken down a notch. We need to talk about humility, okay? Your bragging is really off-putting. I'm not bragging, shut up. God. It's like, I'm 50 years old, I'm 6'4", I'm type O, I'm the best typologist in the world, and I'm the most right person in the world. They're all equally factual and objectively true statements. Amen, praise the Lord, and Eric's right. It's a very cloudy day in Los Angeles, and today we run out of time. Struggles past, troubles still to come. The day is nearly done. Someone buy us some more time. Cloudy day in Los Angeles. Cloudy day in LA. I'm no sort of evangelist, but I have something to say. 'Cause life those who lie awake all night, and voices telling you to give in will try to sap your will to fight. But whether I'm supposed to be here or just be soon forgotten noise is sort of based on what I see here and also on what I avoid. It's a very cloudy day in Los Angeles, and today we run out of time. Struggles past, troubles still to come. The day is nearly done. Will someone buy us some more time? Cloudy day in Los Angeles, cloudy day in LA. I'm no sort of evangelist when I got something to say, something to say. I tell you, it's very comparable, and happened, but although it happened after, but it's very comparable to this realization I had at some point, like before I started dating Rachel, probably even before I started dating Kimberly, I realized, oh, this is all just about who's more insecure. And girls are always more insecure. This is easy. Same thing with this rightness thing, right? It's like, oh, this really is as straightforward as just be brutal in your calculi. Don't let yourself be wrong. It's just that simple. And apparently nobody else is as robust at that as I am. It's weird, but it is what it is. To a certain extent, I guess, I should both qualify and credit that statement. My dad may be a little bit more right about me about certain things, about say American politics. He's more practical minded than I am, and if my dad disagrees with me about something, it gives me serious pause as to whether I'm correct about it. There's almost very rarely does anybody have anything to say that gives me significant pause. I almost never, about things on which I have a fairly controversial position or just a strong position, I almost never hear anybody raise any objection that I haven't already fully anticipated and parsed out all of the answers to. My dad occasionally does, though. And I was raised by that guy insisting on being correct about things my whole life. You know, it's like I never heard my dad be one of those goddamn liberals, those goddamn conservatives. He was never like that. The only people he did that about was Christians. He never liked Christians. Those Christians, he hated it when they try to put crosses up places. He really was opposed to that. But other than that, he was never like that, you know? He understood politics as a procedural process kind of thing, and not as a team thing. And although he understood that teams are critical in a two-party system, he didn't identify with either of the teams, and he critiqued them both equally and gave credit both equally as appropriate. So he wasn't a government hater, he wasn't a government lover, he wasn't a Democrat, he wasn't a Republican. He was a policy analyst. He had his poli-sci degree. He had a master's in poli-sci in addition to his philosophy PhD. He taught poli-sci. He didn't teach philosophy. At American College, which is not it's a college for like design, but they have BAs, so they have regular classes too. Anyway, so yeah, okay. My dad is now note, if you look holistically, my dad is not as correct as I am about a lot of things, but when it comes specifically to certain political issues, I can be a little reductive. So, for a perfect example is my dad successfully convinced me that I needed to give credit to Trump in some certain areas where I wasn't giving him credit. For example, that like I was railing against Trump's disrespect for the protocols and traditions of the office in some extent. And my dad pointed out that ultimately we needed that for Trump to get us out of a bunch of treaties that we should never have gotten in the first place, which he did. He sort of cleared our treaty slate. And it's like, okay, well, you're still teaching me. I'm still learning from you. You know, he doesn't learn anything from me. It wouldn't hurt him to learn things from me. There's plenty of things I could teach him, but I am still learning from him. He's that smart. He's that good. He's that correct. It's amazing. So, hi Flow State. Are you getting up early now? Is this you getting up, or is this you going to bed? Oh, you're going to bed. I see. Now I see. I got the first part of it. We can learn more about Christ consciousness from punching your girlfriend in the face on acid. That's not Christ consciousness. I know what Christ consciousness is. First, what you do is you take some fish, and then you turn them into loaves. Then you get some loaves, and you take those loaves, and you turn them into some wine. Now the wine's twice as much as the loaves were, fine. And the loaves twice as much as the fish too, then you take that wine, turn it back into fish, and it doubles again. You got a fantastic dish. That's Christ consciousness. It's all about fish, loaves, and wine. Have I told you guys about how terribly Jesus' foot washing behavior was misinterpreted? So, Jesus was never in favor of washing anybody's feet. Instead, he was scolding some people who had dirty feet and trying to show them how to say, you gotta wash them. They kept bumblefucking it away, so he's like this. He picks up one of his foot and starts scrubbing it. It was right then that the apostle whatever who told that story walked by. And all of that stuff about how good it is to wash people's feet, that was all just his interpretation. In reality, Jesus was furious that these people had dirty feet and had never learned how to wash them themselves. And he cast a curse on them. Forevermore, he said, you shall not be comfortable in bed until you've washed your feet. You and all of your descendants. Well, I am coming out of the closet. I am one of the descendants of that line of people. And that's why, before I get into bed every night, if my feet feel dusty, I cannot get into bed until I rinse them in the bathtub. Christ's curse still affects me, even though it's been so many generations since that foot washing incident in the Bible. True story. Eric's True Christianity channel, I should call this. The real story behind the Bible's hottest scenes. What's the real story of the four horsemen of the apocalypse? Well, they're actually the four horsemen of the solar eclipse. It's kind of a telephone game problem. Somebody misheard. And they aren't horsemen, they're whoremen. So basically it's saying during solar or lunar eclipses, men are more likely to go whoring. That's the only thing they're trying to say there. And somehow there's this whole apocalypse thing going on. I don't know. People got confused. True story of Christianity is this. Noah and his ark. He did not call it an ark. He called it his pantry. It's where he kept his exotic meats. True story. True Stories of the Bible, Part 4. The Virgin Mary. Amazingly, and people don't realize this, she remained a virgin throughout her entire marriage to Joseph, despite having sex with him multiple times. That's how thick and rubbery her hymen was. True story. True Stories of the Bible. The three wise men didn't really bring frankincense, myrrh, and gold. They all brought matching candles, which they'd gotten to the Yankee Candle Company. And they were embarrassed because they'd all gotten the same smell, which was apple pie. And they'd all have prepared the same speech, which was, "Hey Mary, hey Joseph, I got this for your baby because everybody loves the smell of apple pies." So they huddled together outside the manger. And they're like, "We can't bring these candles in now because it looks like it's like we dressed up in the same clothes for school, like Twins Day or something. It's ridiculous. I told you guys, I was going to Yankee Candle Company." And the other wise guy's like, "Oh, I thought you were suggesting that to me. I thought you were saying you should go." "No, I was telling you I'm going to go. I was telling you so you don't go." And the third wise man said, "Look, I didn't even hear that conversation. It was actually Wise Man One's wife called me and said, can you tell me where my husband is? I don't know." And then I tried calling him and he wasn't available, and I called Wise Man 2 and he said, "Oh, he's at the candle place." And I thought, "Oh, I should do that too. I should go to the candle place." But I agree, we can't all walk in with these same candles. So what did they do? Well, the three wise men walk around the manger area and they go, "Look, we're just going to have to spend this properly." So Wise Man 1, he finds some sticks with some moss growing on it. It's like, okay, look, these kind of look like incense sticks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there, I'm going to say, "I have just received a shipment from the most valued treasures of the exotic Orient, which included a package of this very special incense. And because the guy the Silk Road guy's named Frank, we call it frankincense, okay? So I'm just going to tell him, it's just, and when it burns, it's going to smell like something. It's going to smell like a stick or something, so he won't even know the difference." And that wise man number 2 goes, "That's a great idea. Let me try something like that." He can't find anything. Nothing. Until he finds this, like, basically, it's just like this pile of mud, it's just like, I don't know, man. What am I going to do with this? And he scoops up a pile of mud, and Wise Man 1 goes, "Look, I got your back. Same caravan. They call this, this is not mud, this is, how are we going to pitch this? It's got rejuvenative powers, it's got youth restoring vigor, it eliminates laugh and crow's feet lines completely. It's the hottest ticket item everywhere east of Mongolia. And it's called myrrh." Myrrh? You got a better name? How about like moistened mud? No, we got to move away from the fact that it's mud entirely. Don't give them any hints. Just call it myrrh. It conveys nothing. And then the third wise man is like, hey, look at this. I found a fucking nugget of gold on the ground. And the other 2 wise men felt pretty bad about their gifts at that point afterwards, because he didn't need to spend his gifts at all. That's the true story of the 3 wise men, with one detail left out. Whatever happened to those candles, you may wonder? Well, the funny thing is, Mary took one of them. She said, "I love these." And the other 2 wise men took theirs home to their wives. They were happy to receive them. And it was several Christmases later, on Jesus' 6th birthday, when they all returned for a visit. And guess what? Mary had saved that candle unlit for this occasion for the full 6 years. And when they all smelled that apple pie smell, they had such a good-hearted and warm laugh together. It was then that the wise men told Mary and Joseph, about the fiasco with the candles before and how really, and Joseph says, yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but it was pretty obvious that the myrrh was just mud. But I gotta say, that frankincense smelled absolutely fantastic. I burned through that shit in like a week and a half. It's like, where can I get me another ounce of them shits? Right? That's some good stuff. It turned out that what the wise man had found was not so much frankincense as it was methamphetamine. It was a stick of methamphetamine. He didn't know it at the time. So Joseph had his tweaker phase. The manger was absolutely spotless during Joseph's tweaker phase, of course. He was a real cleaner. Mary got worried. She said, Joseph, come to bed. Why are you still awake? And he said, I'm cleaning. But it's dark outside and we don't have any electricity because it's the year 0. That's why I've got all these Yankee Candle Company candles lit. So I can see. You're going to hurt your eyes. You're going to strain your eyes trying to do all that by candlelight. It's not just candlelight. I'm also using the light from the halo from Jesus' head. Well, that's smart. That's smart. Might as well make use of that. Keeps me up at night. It's like, can someone put a bag over that kid's head? It's like the sun of God or something shining up my sleeping space. Plus, I like it quiet, and every time we go to sleep, is this constant drone of heavenly angels singing. I got a broom beside the bed, so nowadays when I hear it, I bang on the ceiling. Shut the fuck up, angels. The true story of Joseph, Mary, and baby Jesus. A little known fact, Jesus actually began carpentry at the age of 5 when he made his own catapult, which he used to lay siege to the ancient Aramaic city of Jerusalem, unsuccessfully. He was premature in his revolution. He had recruited a few of his childhood friends to go and help him destroy the city walls. Unfortunately, after the first large boulder had been catapulted into the walls, the soldiers came pouring out, and they would have slaughtered the boys, except the children quickly thought, hey, they probably will believe this, and they said, it was some bad men, they ran that way. And the soldiers ran off that way, and then the children go, hey, that was a bad idea, fuck this noise, and they went home. And they swore never to talk about it again. But even years later, Jerusalem was curious. Who had been that band of masked men who had catapulted that boulder through the wall of Jerusalem? It wasn't a sin, though, is the key thing. Jesus is still sin-free. You know why it wasn't a sin? Because the Bible explicitly makes an exception for catapulting Jerusalem. And thou shalt catapult boulders onto no cities, lest thine catapulted boulders come back to you in the form of God's wrath. Asterisk, Jerusalem not included. So true. True story of Samson and Delilah. It was actually Delilah who had the long hair, not Samson. And she did cut Samson's hair, but he asked her to. She did a poor job. And he got absolutely livid because he was supposed to give a speech that night. And he had been drinking and wasn't a very good guy anyway. And he raised his hand to slap Delilah. And she kicked him straight in the nuts. He collapsed down to the ground. And she said, I told you better never lay a hand on me. And she was about to walk out of the room, but he tried to reach for her leg. When he did, he missed, and it knocked over a table. A vase was on top of it, which landed on his head, and gave him permanent brain damage. From that day forward, he believed himself to be as strong as Hercules, but only if his hair was long. And he accused Delilah of having stolen his strength because his hair was currently short. The brain damage precluded him from recalling that it had always been short, and that he'd only, after the brain damage, begun growing it long. Of course, the brain damage incurred an additional damage to his scalp, which meant his hair wasn't very effective at growing anymore. So he assumed that it was growing so slowly because Delilah was frequently cutting it off. Eventually, he killed her in her sleep, and the citizens of the country who found her their beloved queen rose up against Samson with their pitchforks and torches and turned him into a pillar of salt by having him look away from Lot's wife at exactly the right moment. True story. True Bible Stories with Eric. True stories from the Bible. Rebecca from the Bible, who I believe may have been Abraham's wife. Mostly she was famous for hating it when people called her Becky. She said, "Please don't offer me a diminutive nickname that makes me feel infantilized as a woman." She was an early feminist, you might say. She was the one who first suggested that while the men were sleeping, all the women gather some of the vaginal blood from between their legs and smear it on the guys' faces as a prank. The next morning, the guys all woke up and thought they had bloody noses and accused each other of punching each other in the nose while they were sleeping, and a huge fistfight brawl broke out. At that point, one of the women came forward and said, "It was Becky, she did." And Rebecca said, "I told you not to call me Becky." And then they started fighting, and that's when Eve showed up. And she's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And, she's kind of the matriarch. She's got a little bit of weight. However, before she can even get the next word out, a tomato hits her square in the face, and the brawl's back on. It's then that the Archangel Michael comes down with his fiery sword, kills them all in one fell swoop. And that was the end of the chapter of Rebecca, the book of Rebecca, as written in the book of Luke 24, 22, 21, 19, 12, I believe it is, if I'm correct on my scripture citation. A lot of people say, "Hey Eric, whatever happened to the Tower of Babel after it got knocked over?" They don't really go into that part. Well, look, the Bible tells us very clearly that the Tower of Babel was a literal place, but it infers that the knocking over of the Tower of Babel was metaphorical, such that what was really knocked over wasn't the tower so much as the dominant paradigm that allowed that Tower of Babel to become so central to the people who occupied Babel in their lives. So God was concerned that the people of Babel were too impressed with their own tower. He's like, "What is this, Dubai?" And the people of Babel didn't even get the reference. Then he felt like, God, what are these Babel people worth anyway? They don't get my great joke. They love their tower so much. So then God comes down and he says, "Okay, well, let me see if I can sort of defame the tower a little bit." And he starts spreading this rumor. He like puts on disguises and stuff, and goes around different people spreading the same basic rumor, which is that the Tower of Babel looks like a giant penis, and that other cities have begun calling Babel Penis Town, and that Babel should be embarrassed by it. So then he goes back up to heaven, snickering behind his hand. Ha ha ha, that should do it. Well, much to his surprise, it backfires. It turns out that this very patriarchal society of Babel, which really values, penises, it's thrilled to hear this. And in fact, it changes its name temporarily from Babel to Babel-Penis Town. Eventually, the city council removes the Penis Town part. They say, look, we're hanging too much of a lantern on it. Let people just enjoy the phallus for what it is without our having to draw attention to it. But, so, God goes back. I was like, God damn it, what is wrong with these people? And the Holy Ghost says, well, maybe they wouldn't get along so well if they couldn't talk to each other. And God says, well, I mean, you're saying, what, like tear out their tongues? That seems kind of harsh. And Holy Ghost goes, I got 3 words for you, God. Hay demasiado chupacabras. And God's like, what are those noises? And the Holy Ghost says, welcome to a language I call Spanish. A language you go, what? That's right. You know how everybody talks with these certain kinds of words or whatever? Well, let's just imagine, you know how right now we call a tree a tree? Let's just pretend that every time you call a tree, instead of calling it a tree, you call it a blackacheca. Well, then that's the new word for that, right? What we'll do, we'll make up a new word for everything. And then you use your magic God powers, and what we'll do is we'll split the population into like 10 different parts, we'll have 10 languages, and it would just, all of a sudden, it's like, you'll come home, you'll be like, hey mom, is dinner ready? And mom will say, ¿Qué? No comprendo. It'll be hilarious. We can watch from up here. And God likes the idea, but he doesn't want to have to do the legwork of making up all of these new languages. And Jesus isn't in heaven yet, Jesus is still not even born, I don't even think. So he gets the angels together and he's like, look, you guys, I need you to make some languages. And he explains to them what they are and everything. And the angels don't know how to make up languages either. So what they do is they go down to various places on Earth to study, to think about it or whatever. And some of them go to Mexico, one of them goes to Japan, one of them goes to Korea, one of them goes to Russia, one of them goes to Germany. And what they discover is that because of their connection to the divine, that the land itself imparted into each of the angels the spirit of the language of the people that would come to grow there someday. So the angel who was like on Germany land, the land was always making him, he was just sort of walk around all of a sudden with uncontrollably he started making sounds that sounded like Proto-German. And within about a week, he was fluent in what we now know as the German language. Same thing happened concurrently in all those other locations with the other angels. Then what happened was the angels came back to God and gave a series of PowerPoint presentations, each on their experience. God tried to be patient. Each of them wanted to include at least some vacation photos, and God really didn't care. He didn't want to hear about that adorable fruit stand that they saw down by Cancun. But regardless, what he did have was 10 precise, complete dictionaries of the languages we now know as Spanish, English, German, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Finnish, and the 10th one was, I'm drawing a blank here. I know this so well too. I just took a test on it yesterday. What was that 10th language? What was it? Oh right, Babylonian. He left some of the people of Babel speak their normal language, which was of course Babylonian. What else would people of Babel speak? So, I know this is a somewhat long-winded Bible story. I appreciate the faithful here who are hanging in because they love to hear the scripture as it speaks the word of the Lord, who gave us his only son so that we might be forgiven for our sins. It's true. Anyway, so the angels go back to Babel, and what they do is they say, there's a lottery, everybody. Get your ticket. And they're free. And if you win, you win a big surprise. And everyone's like, ooh, I want a ticket. What they really were is a way for the angels to randomly group them into 10 groups. Because the way it's ended up playing out, it very well may be that one member of a family is in one group, another member of a family another group, and a family that was very tight knit one day, the next day can no longer speak to each other or understand each other. And that's exactly what happened. Now, in the Bible, it will tell you the Tower of Babel fell. It did not fall, it jumped. Okay? When it saw all the chaos going on around it, and it saw the people who used to visit it and climb its many glorious and picturesque floors. You need to stop playing in and out, kitty, in and out, kitty. I am not your doorman, except that I obviously am, because no matter how many times I say it, I keep obeying your commands. Deuteronomy was one of the most questionable of the disciples. It's not really clear if his name really was Deuteronomy, in fact. Because apparently, when he was first introduced to the other disciples, Jesus said, "Please tell us your name." And he said, my name, it's Deuteronomy?" And then I was like, "Oh, what a strange name, Deuteronomy." "Yeah, that's my name. People, you call me dude. Fine. What's your last name, Deuteronomy?" It's Clayvase." Deuteronomy Clayvase? The real truth is, he was in the underworld, the Aramaic underworld. In the Aramaic underworld, what they did is they produced counterfeit shrouds of Turin, which they sold to tourists. And the tourists said, "Well, what is this?" And the sellers would say, "A better question is, what will this be?" Because Jesus hadn't been born yet and Turin wasn't a place. So, as a consequence, the shrouds were referencing something that hadn't happened. But the people who made them didn't know that either, which is why they mostly used them to wrap up produce. Anyhow, that's an ancillary tale, not really relevant to the current storyline. What's happening right now? Oh, right. So, the Tower of Babel, it was a proud tower, a noble tower, a sentient tower. It was born of the living rock, infused by the Holy Spirit with a soul. And when that soul saw its community divided by linguistic barriers, it said, "I can go on no further." And it leapt from its foundation.
Yes, baby.
It only left about 1.5 feet, but that was enough to tip it over.
Yes.
And then when it landed on the ground, it broke into 1,000,000 pieces. Naturally, the people of Babel said, checked their protocols book, which had a page, what to do in case of a Humpty Dumpty scenario. So this qualified as a large-scale Humpty Dumpty scenario. So they sent all the king's horses and all the king's men to the fallen Tower of Babel, which had broken into 1,000,000 pieces. But despite their best efforts, they were unable to put it back together again. And that's the true story of the Tower of Babel. So that's why this live stream is called Let's Be Creative, right? You didn't know any of that stuff before today. You might have already known that Noah referred to his ark as the meat locker or the pantry. There were a shit ton of very delicious species that didn't make it past the flood. They got on the boat. They didn't get off the boat. When asked about it, Noah said he thought the lions ate it. When you asked the lions, they said, "We didn't eat it," you know. When they go back to Noah, they go, I meant the sea lions. And then they go to the sea lions. The sea lions like, "We didn't eat them." Go back to Noah. I'm sorry, I meant they had, well, they died in their sleep of sleep apnea. Now, of course, the species are species we don't have anymore, so we won't recognize the name, but like, I'll just use Pokemon name, the Snorlax. They died in their sleep with sleep apnea. And they'll be like, oh, well, sure enough. Yeah, look, I got a veterinarian's note here. Of course, here's what the mystery that's still not really explained. As far as anybody knows, they checked the ship's registers. At no point during the 24 hours when those Snorlaxes were said to have died, was a veterinarian on board. Not at one point. The signature at the time, the veterinarian was 6 miles away, gathering coconuts from a nearby island. He was nowhere near where the ship's log says he saw and confirmed sleep apnea is the cause of death. I mean, the thing is, if it was sleep apnea, then why would they have been reduced to a pile of bones with chew marks on them? Was one of my questions. Is that normally a symptom of sleep apnea? I mean, I guess he said that, well, the flesh rotted away or something after they died, but that seems like awfully fast decomposition to me, and it still doesn't explain the human teeth marks on the bones. So while this mystery is unexplained, it's not completely unfair to cast some suspicion on Noah, Misty, which is Noah's wife, Giggles, which is Noah's other wife, Tassels, his third wife. They were all big meat eaters. They were all on Atkins before it was trendy, is the thing. Noah was kind of a dick. He made sure his wives stayed fit. He made him go on Atkins. He jogged them around the deck of the ship. And, they were always stepping in various animal feces. The top deck eventually became not a deck made of wood, but a deck made of frequently recompacted animal feces that had been compacted by the eager feet of these running wives, desperate to stay fit and avoid Noah's narcissistic rage. The true story of Noah and his ark with Misty, Giggles, and Titsalot, or whatever her name is. Tassels, right, Tassels. Giggles, Misty, and Tassels. Those are Bendy. I forgot about Bendy. That's his fourth wife. He called her Bendy because she was very, very flexible, let me tell you. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Apparently, there used to be a species of animal that existed. They got onto the ark, didn't get off the ark again, right? It was called rib medallion. Apparently, it was just like a bacon wrap medallion of prime rib, basically, with fur on it and a little face. It was very poorly designed to thrive in any ecosystem. It was just obviously like prey to anything. But, humans had sustained some of a population by breeding them for their own consumption. Noah brought something like 64 pair of those things onto the ship. And they were all dead and missing by the time the flood had receded. Now, rumor has it that one of his wives got in serious trouble as she had been explicitly instructed to not eat the last breeding pair of these things. But it's unclear if he was actually able to prove it was her. Now, my intuition on the matter was Giggles. Because Giggles had always resented the other two wives. Because Giggles didn't enjoy anal sex nearly as much as they did. And Noah was a big fan. So, she couldn't partake in their enthusiasms. And she was a bit of an outcast as a consequence. Delegated to cooking and cleaning. Kind of like the Cinderella of the stepsisters. Meanwhile, Bindi was always showing off her acrobatics, twisting this way and that. It was a crazy time, those few weeks on the Ark. Noah will never forget it, neither will any of his wives, and neither will any of the surviving animals. Neither will I. I was there too. That's how I'm able to tell you the story, of course. I had to be there to be able to tell it to you. I was very young at the time, but my memories of it are exceedingly clear. See, that's the real secret of behind Talking with Famous People and Eric. The real secret is that I actually was born 100,000 million years ago. And I am one of those characters who's been this person or that in this era or that, but I lived this long, long, immortal life. And that's why I'm able to tell you all these true stories about the past. When Archduke Ferdinand was shot and World War One ignited, I was there. When Gutenberg put the last exclamation point in his famed Bible, I was there. When Pope Innocent II gathered together that brothel of virgins and befouled them all in a wild night of debauchery and pillaging, I was there. Mrs. Mom, you always tell me that I'm a new soul. If I were really a new soul, why don't I have that new soul smell? I'm not that new, or my soul would still have that new soul smell. So, anyway. You know, I'm one of those mystical characters who says enigmatic things about themselves. Who am I? What am I? When the wind tells you what you need to know, it is I. When a shadow flickers at just the right time, as though it's waving at you, that too is I. When the stars align, and the sunbeam shines exactly right through your window to create a prism of many colors, each of which lands on one of your fingers. I am there. Okay. Thanks, mystical guy. You're welcome. Okay, thanks. Who would like to be mystical with me? Let's play mystical mysticism. Eric, have you ever tried electric cigarettes? I don't like them. They make my throat itch too much. Okay, thank you, Fly Guy. I will try to bring out mystical guy more often. He's deeply immersed in mysticisms. Alright, well, I guess I'll play a goodbye song and then I'll go. What goodbye song should I play? Goodbye to you. I say adieu. And let me say aloha. I remind you of that Uriah Heep song. What a strange sentence. That's a very strange sentence. I had a big blowout poo today. So I don't really have a poo upcoming. It was like a triple poo. You know, I had like 2 regular poos and then like a big like waterfall poo. So I'm cleaned out. Okay, first I'll play this song. Goodbye. Goodbye. I call to say adieu, goodbye. I will be leaving soon. I'll be going in the room with Rachel, to whom I'll say hi. So to you, then I will say bye. Goodbye's a sad word to hear for many people, dear. But I don't want you to be sad. I know that bad people leave. Don't say goodbye. It's called ghosting, I hear. But I'm saying bye. Do you know why? Because I care about you. That song is called Goodbye, but it's not the last song, because I am going to play Boba Fett's request. The fact that I have somebody who's a connoisseur of different takes of one of my songs, is spectacularly great. It's like, I would gladly trade in all the cognitive functions in the world to be a successful musician. If I had my druthers, I would like to be able to play on stage in front of a big crowd of people my music and have them cheer. That's what I really would like. Although, I gotta say also, there's another thing that I would really like, which is, I would really like to perform comedy to an audience that finds me hilarious and is laughing out loud. That would be very gratifying if I could pull it off. I don't know if I could pull it off. That's the thing, I've never done it. I'm scared to try it. Not scared exactly. As wary, more like wary and not in a hurry to get around to it exactly because of that. Would I be an ESFP? No. I mean, it just has to be me as a person. I'm saying, if I put a lot of energy into garnering an audience on YouTube for a variety of things, but most of the audience is here about cognitive functions and typology and stuff. But it's like, if I could blow up huge in cognitive functions and redefine the psychology world, or have massive hits and be able to play stadiums, I would choose the latter to the detriment of society. Okay, I would do so. I'm sorry, I just would. I would that's my dream, really, if I have one. I've never thought of it as a dream because it seems so unrealistic. I've never believed I had any chance of being successful in music. Now I kind of think I might. I don't know. I'm starting to think I'm pretty good at some certain things. Every life lived reaches a time when the road splits in two. When I'm there, there are times of despair, times when it's hard to feel good. That's when I look for my sack full of solvency, and that that satchel of helpful goods. A satchel of helpful goods. Satchel of helpful goods. A satchel of helpful goods. Every life lived reaches a time when the road comes to an end. When I'm there, or will there be anybody else around? Or will I travel all alone? That's when I look for my sack, but I saw and see I ain't that satchel filled up with home. Yeah, that satchel, now nothing but bones. Satchel of helpful goods. 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 Well, obviously that was better than most takes of it, but not perfect. I messed up a couple of those spots. Like, I was paying too much attention to the guitar for a second, and then I had to catch up with what word came next. In one moment, you may have noticed it. That's what happened there. Jesus is the Son of the Father, who is God in heaven, of the Holy Ghost. And the Holy Ghost is God's brother. I think that's why I believe Jesus is his nephew. I mean, Holy Ghost is Jesus' uncle. Jesus is Holy Ghost's nephew. If you put them together, you don't have to stay out past curfew. Yeah, it was just what I needed. I needed someone to lead. Well, Jesus is the Lord, and the Lord is Jesus, and the Holy Ghost is something that's neither God nor Jesus, but at least he's the most impressive ghost in the universe, because he's holy. Some people say he's the brother of God, which makes him Jesus' uncle. Some people say he's the mother too, which would make him God's grandmother's soup making friend, who comes around again to invite everyone to the Lord. Here, have some body of Christ. It's made into a wafer, and slurp it down with this bloody tapering glass of blood, which comes from Christ. It tastes like wine, 'cause Christ's so nice. Yes, so says the Holy Ghost. If you like ghosts at all, make them holy, 'cause the occult's not cool. It angers God, and holy moly, you know what school tells you. You shouldn't anger God unnecessarily. And if you disagree with me about what I'm saying now. You're blasphemous and you will incur God's wrath, and how He'll send down locusts, send down lightning, send down fire too. And if you're lucky, He'll convert you to a Jew. Oh, the Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost, member of the Trinity, who's the most transparent and can move through walls most freely. Unlike Jesus, the Holy Ghost can't be bent. Nails and wood can't begin to hold Him. His ectoplasm isn't solid enough. No, Holy Ghost made out of more divine stuff. So everybody love the Trinity, like God, Jesus, and me. And the Holy Ghost makes three. Yes, love the Trinity, and everybody eat the Eucharist. God's flesh is the very best when it's rendered out of Jesus' body. Bam! Bam! I nailed that freestyle. That is what you call nailing a freestyle. I fucking nailed that one. Leaf trimmer. The Eucharist. It's the first sentence of the Bible is, everybody eat your fucking Eucharist. How can you deny it's biblical? It literally says that in the first sentence of the Bible. First of all, everybody better eat your fucking Eucharist. First sentence of the Bible. So, you don't know your Bible very well, and I think you need to go to Sunday school, little mister. The kind that happens on Sundays. And on the seventh day, God said, hey, you better eat that fucking Eucharist. Eat it all. Drink the wine too. I don't care if you're a recovering alcoholic. You drink that shit right now. But God, it's the Sabbath. That's why you've got to be consuming my kid. Why do you want us to eat your child so much? Why are you questioning me? I work in mysterious ways. Well, I know, but that's kind of more creepy than mysterious. Hey, don't you be calling me creepy just because I want to feed my dead son to you. Okay. I've got to go. Good night. Love you all. I wish you all the best. And don't forget to eat plenty of Eucharists. If you're not eating shit tons of Eucharists every day, what's wrong with you?